戦争は変わった。一つの時代が終わり、俺たちの戦争は終わった。
War has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. Verified soldiers carry algorithmic arms, manipulate social influence, AI enhance and regulate their timelines. Memetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. And when the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
Think outside the cage.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. It is February 23rd, 2026. And today, Corrupt Polychaos, episode 918. My name is Gonz, at Face Like the Sun, director of the Age of Deceit films, and author of Archetypalism, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ. Live to tape from the metaverse to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. It's Monday.
Gary, what day is it? Ow, Monday.
And as you can tell, I am solo today, and I'm trying something a little different because for whatever reason, ever since the last X update, the live stream is not posting on the timeline, or at least my feed. So I went ahead and started a X Spaces simultaneously here. So we are live on YouTube, both Face Like the Sun and Canary Cry News Talk channels, as well as Rumble and X, and in Spaces here on the X account. So I see Wheezy in there. I don't know if it's frozen. Let me know if it's working, Wheezy. Appreciate you. Okay, so as you can tell, I am solo today, which means rants are loading. There's enough to talk about, but I think it's important to frame things and sort of do a little bit of a, I don't know, just a roundup of where we are, or a reflection of where we are in 2026 here, and having studied for so long the many of the topics that are now mainstream, I think it's just important to contextualize everything here, because there's a lot of conversations taking place in our niche, so to speak, the topics that we covered for the last 15 years that were not necessarily dismissed early on, just ignored, I would say. And nowadays most people are becoming more aware that, for example, there is a satanic elite who basically run everything, and they're into some pretty nefarious activities, some immoral things at the very least, and some horrific things once you dig in. And, the witch hunt is on, because now that a lot of the documents are released, and I'm hearing there's more. I mean, the reports are that Jeffrey Epstein has storage units all across the country filled with more information or more stuff. So if that's the case, then we're going to have a crazy storage wars situation. People are going to be fighting for all kinds of storage units to look for those Epstein files, which again, to me, it's like a witch hunt, a modern day digital or virtual witch hunt, which is appropriate if we're talking about who we are exposing. But at the same time, you have to wonder, why are they allowing this information to be public now? For what purpose? What is the ultimate goal, the ultimate agenda? And it seems to be that a technocratic overhaul of everything, the infrastructure of the world, the new world order, which we talked about back in 2012, 2013. Even back then, the conversations about the new world order, at least in our little niche, in our little corner of the internet, had to do with how the old world order was going to be exposed, and part of the exposure was going to create the leverage for an actual new world order. And I believe many people have pointed out, for example, Alice Bailey, who is an occultist and who was the theosophist who wrote about her channelings with ascended masters. I believe she put the year 2025 as the year that the externalization of the hierarchy will begin in earnest, where the world leaders, I can't remember the exact name that she had. She had titles for everything. But basically, the idea was that people will start to learn about the quote unquote truth, a sort of transcendent sorts of truth, not necessarily the truth of the gospel, but a twisted form of it, I would say, because a lot of people are turning to Christ, turning to God at the very least, because they realize and recognize that the world is run by satanic elite. And even if you're an atheist, knowing that the world is run by satanic elite causes you to at least ask the question, okay, all right, well, if the world leaders, the elite, the people that really control everything, believe in Satan and worship Satan and do all kinds of crazy things to please Satan, which makes sense in the context of the temptation of Jesus Christ. It's in Matthew 4, and all the Gospels record it, where he's out in the desert. Satan tempts him, one of the temptations being taken up to the high places, being shown the kingdoms of the world, which ironically already belongs to God, but of course Satan believes that it belongs to him. And he says, hey, all these I will give you if you will just bow to me. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. So there is a quasi-awakening, I would say. People are waking up to the fact that, hey, the satanic elite run everything, and they are asking the right types of questions. Now, to fill that vacuum, it is pretty standard that a non-solid gospel is going to be presented to many people. I see that happening daily. There's not a lot of pushing back on the new age from the Christians anymore. They have been swallowed up into the politics of it all. And so, let's set aside our differences a little bit, guys. Hey, you're a Catholic over there, you're a Protestant, whatever, but we're all fighting the satanic elite, and I'm seeing that across religions as well. Like, hey, I know you're Islam, but you're not one of those jihadist, terrorist Islamic people. So, hey, let's push back against the satanic elite. And even amidst the Jewish population, the religious Jews, the ones that are grounded in the Torah, as they would claim, they're pushing back on the satanic elite, and they're pushing back on their own titles of, Israel and Jews and stuff like that, because, of course, we have learned that Jeffrey Epstein was a Jewish supremacist, if we can put it that way. And, people are up to speed on that kind of stuff now, and it took a long time to get there. But now that we're here, what does it mean? What is the purpose for the world to find out about all these things? And so I'll talk about that a little bit. But of course, we're going to run through the news today as well. Plenty to talk about. My goodness. The news just never stops. I think it's meant to psychologically really hamper us and tire us out. And that's why the polychaos. There's multiple strands of chaos happening all at once. And of course, the suggestion by the government is everything's fine, the stock markets are up. Meanwhile, there's all kinds of changes and deconstruction and exposure taking place. But I wanted to start with just a couple scriptures to give a little foundation, a little springboard into what we're going to talk about today. And the first one comes from Philippians 4. Philippians 4 is one of my go-to chapters that talks about rejoicing, which is difficult to do in this time, but also prayer. And Philippians 4 verses 6 through 7 says, "Do not be anxious about anything." Oh my goodness, do I need to hear that today? "But in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Now, there's a lot to be anxious about in this world right now. There is obviously the stuff going down, the people learning about the satanic elite and the pedophiles and the cannibals and the horrific things there. We got Trump talking about how he's going to release the alien documents, and we got disclosure coming up, which is part of the Great Deception. We got Mexican cartels or the leaders of Mexican cartels getting killed and Mexico on fire. There's all kinds of chaos everywhere. It is very easy to be anxious right now. And in fact, I know some folks locally where I'm at, pastors and some of their kids who are suffering from horrific anxiety. And anxiety is something that I know there's like a clinical diagnosis of anxiety. And I know it's a real thing. But at the same time, I feel that more people are anxious. And it is because of the news cycle. It is because of social media. It's because of TikTok and all those things pounding into our brains all of the scary things that are going on. And, it's partly truth, like, hey, it's true. But it's partly also meant to shatter people's paradigms. And that's the part that people don't talk about right now. Is there's a lot of talk about, hey, conspiracy theorists, we're right, we're batting 1,000, everyone. And I, of course, have participated in the sort of rah-rah moments when, of course, we've been talking about the satanic elite the whole time that I've been doing podcasts and making videos and making content starting in 2011 and the podcast in 2012. It's been part of our conversation with transhumanism, which is another layer to the entire Epstein situation, where, of course, his trafficking and the abuse and the blackmail, that's all symptomatic to a much deeper issue, which is always going to be spiritual, but their agendas, deeper agendas, I would say, for transhumanism, for living forever. And that pursuit is baked into the fabric of the fallen world. We talk about sin. It just means miss the mark, but really, what are you missing the mark from? God's purpose. And the further you stray from God, the more you tend to think that you need to solve the problems that God has, one, already solved, and then two, promises with a cosmic level of justice. And having that peace that surpasses all understanding is understanding, literally, that God transcends this world. He created this world, and he is going to bring justice that is supernatural. No earthly justice is going to suffice. What if we find out Epstein is alive and there's a manhunt for Epstein, and let's say there's even an actual public execution of Epstein, everyone's going to cheer. We got him finally. Or maybe someone like Bill Gates or whoever's in the list that everybody hates, and they become the sacrificial lamb, or not the lamb, goat. They become the sacrificial goat. They become Azazel, and everyone's going to cheer. But to what end? To what end? Okay, we got the guy. So what? Is sin cleansed? Is the trafficking problem done? Is the cannibal issue solved? Are the world elite stepping down? Like, none of that's going to take place, right? None of that's going to happen until Jesus returns and he really brings that supernatural judgment. So people are getting sucked into this revolution or even revival if you are sort of moving into the faith side of things, which I'm not against. I think it's better to seek God than not, especially if you're coming from a secular worldview. and you're learning about all these different things under the hood, it tends to cause people to at least pursue what this God thing is all about. This eternal goodness is all about. And so I'm not against it, but I also caution and warn that there's going to be a lot of snake oil salesmen out there, especially new agey type of language that gets promoted in the context of this type of exposure. That it's, that this is part of the ascension, this is part of the awakening, it's the age of Aquarius, all those things that we've covered for years now on the Face Like the Sun channel and Canary Cry Radio and News Talk. And, it is, we talk about this a lot on the show. There is a feeling of both vindication when stuff like this last couple of years, really, the season of exposure of the truth getting out there, so to speak. There's a sense of vindication, but also this hinge of jealousy that I've been working through and trying to push away, right? Because we see other content creators and stuff pop off and blow up and all this stuff, and I'm happy for them. But at the same time, I'm going, hey man, we've done so much research, and that TikToker is getting 2 million views, is trying to give the Cliff Notes version of a 2.5 documentary that I made 11 years ago or something. So I have that moment of like, one of these kids, all they want is a 30-second TikTok and they think they know everything. So I have that like old man on a porch type of thing going on, which I'm trying to fight off here. And I don't really sit in that too much. But bringing it back to the anxiety thing, man, the financial side of things is it causes anxiety for me. I'm just going to be upfront and honest. We're not the biggest podcast, clearly, right? If you're here, if you've been here, you know that we operate value for value, which means we don't do advertisements, we don't do affiliate codes, we don't do anything like that. And so we are supported by people who want to support us. And all the people who support us don't have to. You guys don't have to support, but you do, which is a validation for me and Basil that, hey, we're on the right track. We're on the right path to continue to do this type of thing. And here we are, at least for Canary Cry News Talk, episode number 918. Canary Cry Radio, we're close to hitting 200 episodes and, several hundred videos on Face Like the Sun. And yet, I can barely get groceries. I go to the grocery store to get some food for me and my family. And by the end of it, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not getting gas. It's just out of control. And it's just at the same time, I see Trump saying, oh, everyone's getting rich. I made everybody rich. The stock market. And I'm going, great. The 1%, which I think is a statistic that was floating around X this morning, that the 1% of this country have surpassed in total income or a total amount of cash they have or whatever, the middle class entirely. So 1% of this country has more wealth than the middle class, which is about 50% of the country. So yeah, it's not working. Okay. It's not working. It's all falling apart. And I think it's meant to. And I think it's meant to tire us out. It's meant to cause anxiety. And I have to keep reminding myself, I'm like this. I don't know. It makes me feel schizophrenic in a sense, because I'm like sitting in God's peace one moment, and the next moment I'm going, I don't have enough money to get gas for my car, and there's like this crazy anxiety that floods. And then, back to, yes, thank you, Lord, for the peace. Thank you for the blessings. And I think all of us are there. We're kind of in this back and forth where we feel grateful for everything we have, for life, waking up in the morning, just having breath. I'm delighted every morning by my dog and my wife and my kids. And it's a blessing, okay, to be able to sit here and yell into a microphone about all this stuff. But at the same time, I look around and I see the podcasters that have really, quote unquote, made it those last few years and really took off and got huge. And we've documented how all of them have ties to the CIA. I mean, I don't know why, but they all do. All the most popular podcasts have a CIA or ex-intelligence or something. And that, of course, it was going to be that way, right? I mean, what was I thinking? Was I thinking that independent content creators are going to actually be allowed to reach the top of the funnel I don't think so. I don't think so. There are some exceptions, obviously, and I think we need to support those who are continuing to do independent research. And a couple years ago, I ranted about the difference between independent media and alternative media, and I hope people really are seeing that now. That we're really in this era where we have to differentiate between independent media and alternative media because we have mainstream media. Everybody knows about that. Everybody hates mainstream media. And then we have alt media, which grew out of the disdain for mainstream media. But the whole time we were sitting here and going, hey, independent media is truly independent from the entire apparatus. Alt media is a baby of the mainstream media. So of course, their infrastructure is going to mirror and even hijack in some regard the mainstream model, which is why a lot of the big podcasters have sponsorships and ads and all kinds of things to generate income. And here we are chugging along, just chugging along. And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. I do have that sense of, man, do I need to do something else? Do I need to add something else as part of my ability to generate cash? Because, I do this. I have my worship leader job, which I'm learning so much from that job, but it is it's very time consuming. But obviously, it's a worship leader position, and I'm not at a big crazy whatever charismatic church or something where you can generate a whole bunch of income from doing that. So it's a blessing again to lead a congregation in worship, which to me it's becoming more and more clear that literally singing songs about God, to God, worshiping and praising Him is probably like one of the most rebellious things you can do in this world, because the world is just asking you to do so many things. And just singing, like Paul when he was in the prison and he started singing and praising, it's truly this rebellious act of standing up against the principalities, the powers, and the evils of this world. I mean, I don't think anything makes demonic entities and demons themselves more angry than just Christians praising God. I'm convinced of that now. And I think, that's going to keep happening. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to keep pressing into that and learning. And, I'm starting to kind of tinker with the idea of putting together some kind of worship album, but those things take time. They take a lot of effort and cooperation from people. And so those are things that I, have plans for, would like to do, but you never know with all the stuff that's needed in the immediate term here. If you're on X, thank you, people hopping into the spaces here. I see a few people in there. I see Truck, Aim, Crash, Wheezy, Ostrich Butter. Thank you guys for jumping into the spaces. I normally don't broadcast this on spaces, but decided to try it here, and hopefully the audio is good. It's a little different from normal spaces because I'm not going to bring anybody up to the stage. It's just going to be kind of me ranting about stuff for now, but it's very cool to see a few of you guys in there. And I appreciate you. Please continue to do that. And my PFP real quick, my profile picture, if you go on X, it is a pixelated brown dog with a crown. Okay, so anything I say on my X account, people take it really seriously, and of course I'm being serious with a majority of my posts. But it's kind of funny. I see some people push back on some things I say on there, and half the time I'm like, hey, but you're arguing with the pixelated dog on the internet, so just keep in mind, don't get too riled up about stuff. And there's a lot to talk about, obviously, the state of the world, the chaos, the craziness, and just the heartache of everything happening. In the meantime, though, there's a few things that I've been working on with AI, just using the ability to create AI applications and certain siloed large language models and things like that. So I've been building a couple things. One, and I'm just going to mention it here, and I think over time I will make it available publicly. I think the patrons who support me and Canary Cry on Patreon might get first dibs at some of this stuff. But I've been making little siloed research assistants. I made one. It's almost complete. It's not fully complete yet, but it's the Age of Deceit research assistant. And basically, I took the transcripts of all 4 Age of Deceit films with some additional content that I've published over the years, whether it's the book that I never published, or all my notes, all my transcripts, sources, everything that I have. And I created a little research assistant, so you can ask questions about the film or about anything that's going on in the world, and have it contextualize it by way of the Age of Deceit worldview, so to speak, the Age of Deceit documentary worldview. And I made it so it doesn't search the internet. It's a siloed database, which means it can't do search functions for you. So if you say something about Epstein, like, hey, what's the latest Epstein thing? It won't do it because it's not going out and searching for stuff. So something like that I'm interested to make. And I think eventually everybody's going to have something like this, some sort of content engine where people can search the history and look up the documentation of things. I would love to do it for all 1,100 videos that I've made on Face Like the Sun, as well as the almost 1,000 episodes of Canary Cry Radio, and make an assistant where we can say, hey, when did Basil say that the alien deception is going to happen, or something like that, and it'll pull up however many episodes where we talked about that and the timestamps and everything. It would be a really cool thing, but that takes a little bit of time, and I'm learning now the research for it, the infrastructure for it requires a little bit more than just a simple, a little bit of work on ChatGPT or something like that. It's and the AI wars continue. These bots. I may have to move it to a different AI. I mean, there's all sorts of different things going on, but these are just tools that I'm trying to provide for people because I do have this trove of information and research that I think is ready to, for people to consume it in a different way. And people don't necessarily want to sit through a 2.5-hour documentary, but if they can punch in a story or something and see if the research assistant will contextualize it and give you the information quickly, I think people are gonna want that sort of thing. So let's jump into some stuff now. First of all, real quick, there is a post that was talking about how AI is decoding animal languages, and it just happens to be a bird. Okay, for Canary Cry purposes, here's the bird chirping. And for those of you just watching, or I'm sorry, for just listening, what the video shows here is with each chirp. What is a chirp? I don't know what that is. With each chirp, there is a visualizer that is mapping the neurons, or like the neural activity of the bird. And people are suggesting that they are decoding the language of animals through this, which I find very interesting. If you have seen Age of Deceit 4, the eschaton cipher in the counterfeit ledger of life, then you would know that one of my theses in that is that once we start moving into a deeper confluence or connection between AI and quantum computing and blockchain, and once it all kind of comes together, they're going to start talking about quantum algorithms that undergird all creation, and especially biological life. We're deconstructing everything at the moment, even life, right? The building blocks of life. And they've been trying to deconstruct consciousness for a long time. Well, now with AI, they're going to start mapping the procedures of the brain, so to speak. Like, how is the brain operating when we think, or when we talk, or we do whatever? And what they're discovering right now is that there's no way there's no God, because it's so complex. But with enough iterations of the research, they will start to suggest certain algorithms, in my opinion, that undergird consciousness. And that will be a narrative that picks up steam over the next few years. And I think it'll fuse with a quote unquote belief in God, because people will say, like, hey, there has to be a God that programmed all this. But then they will lean into more of the new agey type of ideas where it's more about, our own ascension and our own deliverance from, these the fallen circumstances that we're in. And that's where, for me personally, I lean on the work of Christ for that. Because if Jesus Christ rose from the dead, 2,000 years ago, then that is proof that God came in human flesh and he defeated the thing that we are trying to defeat now with advanced science and technology, which is death and decay. And, it's why the whole topic of transhumanism was so interesting to me in 2010, 2011. And I started to really, I started the entire ministry based on talking about transhumanism because I saw it right away. Just a few years after I was baptized, it was like, wait a minute, the trajectory of technology and science is counterfeit signs and wonders. And that's been the undergirding thesis the whole time. I play this clip a lot. I'm playing it again. This is Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of our president, Donald Trump. And I play it a lot because it's one of those clips that is very telling.
My generation is hopefully, with the advances in science, the first generation to live forever, or the last generation that's going to die.
The first generation that's going to live forever, or the last generation that's going to die. That is Jared Kushner, who's doing a lot of the Middle Eastern negotiations behind the scenes. And we're not given all the details about that, but that's the guy. That's one guy. He's a young guy. And then we know Brian Johnson's out here. And he's doing all kinds of stuff, including taking his the blood of his son and trying to stay young and live forever and all this kind of stuff, which is so bizarre, isn't it? It's so vampiric in a sense. It's like all those vampire movies just turned out to be more or less real. And I'm not saying that Brian Johnson, the guy who's trying to live forever and take his son's blood to do it, is a vampire, but I mean, just kind of put two and two together over time where that's headed. So again, a lot of the things that we've discussed, it's coming to the forefront, but it's being packaged and delivered to the people to either one, cause some tremendous anxiety, or two, distract them into or misdirect them into a different type of solution. And this is with everything. I've said for years that the reason, be careful about the child trafficking thing. Of course we want to stop child trafficking. Of course we want the corrupt leaders who cover up and help those individuals carry out that crime to come to justice, to be brought to justice. But just be careful, because we know that a lot of the elite, influenced by the principalities and powers, they operate on a problem reaction solution type of foundation, or at least a worldview. And so they will present the problem, child trafficking. They will manufacture a reaction. Everybody's upset. The more people learn about this whole terrible Epstein, cannibal, child trafficking, abuse, blackmail engine, more people are going to be upset. They have definitely manufactured, or at least allowed for, the anger to rise. And of course, Elon keeps reiterating that nobody has been arrested for this. And so the anger of the general public will continue to snowball. But what is the reaction? Oh, you guys want to make sure that your children are accounted for? Here's a microchip for your child. Here's some extra surveillance tools to make sure that your child is always, I don't know, a virtual call away, or is on your screen somewhere to make sure. And that's problematic in the end. If microchipping your child is the only solution to end the child trafficking thing, something is wrong. Okay. Bibi Netanyahu years ago, what did he say? I want to microchip the children. And then even his officials had to say tone it down, Bibi. You can't say that. You can't come out and say you want to microchip children. It's not a good look. And actually, before I get into other stuff here that I had planned, I did post this this morning, and it was a story about some kids in Gaza who, this particular girl that they were talking about had some part of her leg blown off, basically. Not completely blown off, just some of her muscles got taken out because of an explosion. And they were giving her VR. And the way the article reported it was that this is giving this child who was traumatized by this relief. Here's what I said. Children physically harmed in Gaza are being given VR goggles to, quote unquote, forget the horrors of their current situation. It's being framed as a relief for these traumatized children, but is it? Or are they implementing what years of MK Ultra trauma-based mind control can provide for social engineering? We know how that works, both at a practical level and also a spiritual level. The practical level is you create the trauma, and then the personalities can splinter, and they're susceptible to different things, right? To different roles or different, worldviews or things of that nature. They become more accepting of whatever is going to save them out of that trauma. But we also know that spiritually speaking, and this is stuff that I learned from Russ Dizdar, the late Russ Dizdar, who also passed away during the pandemic. He wrote the book Black Awakening, saying that there's going to be a massive awakening of satanic super soldiers, which sounds crazy, or sounded crazy. I guess it doesn't sound as crazy anymore for people. But he would always talk about how they would create the trauma, whatever the trauma is. It's always horrific. It's always, very horrible. And what that would do is it would split the personalities. So we already know that through psychology and stuff. But instead of just programming, what psychologists might say, a different personality, what they were really doing was assigning demons, actual demons, to these sub-personalities. And so those demons can actually hide within a person. And then, of course, you can trigger them to come out at a certain point. And it's, like a Manchurian Candidate type thing. Zoolander kind of referenced it loosely in the comedy film. It's been out there before. But it's just one of those things where we know the mechanism. And so it's troubling to see that, hey, these kids that are suffering these horrific things in Gaza are being given VR goggles, and the people reporting are saying, oh, it helps them forget, even if it's just for a minute, that, they're in this horrible situation. And it just so happens that this article came out a day after a nature.com scientific study published this, triggering anger using a virtual reality social scene. And I put that in the comments here. And I'm sure it's just coincidence that the scientific journal just dropped an article that suggests VR would help people to have their anger, or who have anger issues. And the quote from the abstract is, virtual reality VR simulations may provide a safer way for people with high levels of anger to practice overcoming unhelpful reactions. Okay, so it just so happens that we get this report about VR being used for people with anger issues. Might help them process that anger, right? If we're talking about the future generation, who's going to be angry? I would imagine the children who experienced horrific things in Gaza would probably be fairly angry, as they get older. So interesting that they're giving them VR headsets already. Now, let's push this again, thought experiment. Let's push this further down. What level are we going to go with this virtual reality as a good way to process, or, to help people? What about pedophiles? Like, hey, if the pedophile wants to live out their whatever grotesque situation, but they're doing it in the VR world, well, they're not hurting anybody, right? It's better that they're in a VR headset in a corner somewhere than, actually abusing children, right? And I thought about this for a long time, and I know of people that have been around maybe have heard me talk about this years ago, but I thought about this because at first I was like, yeah, it does make sense. It's okay to get some guy, if he's a problem in society, just put him in a room, you're already going to put him in some kind of insane asylum or whatever. Just give him the VR, give him what he wants, kind of thing. But it occurred to me that enabling that individual to remain and perpetuate that sin is not helping that person. It's actually continuing to feed him the things that he needs to perpetuate that sin. And so for the individual, if we're thinking more godly, right? It's hard to think godly when it comes to like pedophiles and rapists and stuff, because the acts are so horrific and evil. But the Bible says to pray for your enemies, and prayer is the thing. So we should be praying for these individuals, and we should not enable their sin. So these are just things that we ought to be conversing about and thinking about as far as ethics and technology go over time. How are we going to implement the technology for what purposes? And are those good enough reasons to implement the technology? And at this point, people are already scrolling, endlessly every day. And we're in front of our screens all the time. Might as well just stick it in front of our face and, help us, right? Hey, if you got anger issues, put on the VR headset. You want to build something cool, put on a VR headset. You want to escape for a little while, put on a VR headset. I mean, if we're going to own nothing and be happy, what's the thing that's going to keep us occupied? A little VR headset would do it. And that for those of you who've been around, my co-host does wear a VR headset during the live show and puts googly eyes over them to make him look like a ridiculous character. But we did that for a reason. And the reason may not ever become public, folks. May never be public. All right, let me talk about some stories here and cover some things because there's a lot going on, okay? There's a lot going on. And I have to start. As a citizen of California, I must begin with some Newsom science.
It's Newsom science, baby! Ha!
Now, this clip has like 35 million views or something now. It's just going viral. Everyone's talking about Gavin Newsom. I believe he's in Atlanta. He's got a black crowd. Now, this is so typical of your leftist Democrat folk. They get in front of whatever crowd they're in front of and they cater to him. Hillary Clinton brought out hot sauce out of her purse to appeal to the black community and stuff. It's nothing new when it comes to that kind of thing. But this might be one of the more egregious moments. Gavin Newsom talking to a black crowd. Is there no audio? Can you guys tell me in the chat real quick? Just because I saw some stuff that says that the audio stopped working. Sometimes working, no sound. Okay, that's what I thought. All right, let me stop this real quick. I've got to do it again. Yeah, the technicalities, man. The technicals. Always fun. I think some of the people in Spaces may have heard it, but people watching live cannot. All right, let's try this again. Here's Gavin Newsom.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. and I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech. Because I cannot read a speech. Maybe the wrong business to be in.
Okay. All right, Gavin Newsom. So he just said that he's 960 SAT, saying he's not a smart guy. I mean, how do you, it's just so ridiculous. How do you insult everybody in the room with, let's just call it for what it is. It's a pretty racist thing to say. Like, I'm not smart, just like you guys. Hey, I'm dumb, just like you guys. Like, what are you doing, Gavin Newsom? And then he does that laugh. That laugh is what drives me insane. I think that laugh is just pure demonic. You know what I'm talking about. I'm playing it again here.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you.
I'm like you. Like even the guy that he's talking to has this look on his face, like, what are you saying, Mr. Newsom? Okay, still no audio, or is the audio back? Hopefully it's working. Okay, it must have worked. Yeah, so it's just is what it is. Gavin Newsom doing his thing. And he said he doesn't read? What do you mean you can't read? You can't read a speech? What are you talking about? Well, people dug up another clip of Gavin Newsom talking about how he can read.
You've written a hell of a book, and I don't say that lightly. I went through it in a quick hour and a half, almost 2 hours, And trust me, I don't read very fast, but it reads at an unbelievable pace. It's so well written. And of course, it's so familiar because I felt a little bit adjacent to so much of the subject matter, but it's 18 chapters. It's an impressive piece of work, 263 or so pages.
Okay, so he read 263 pages in an hour and a half. He did it. But in front of the black crowd, I can't read, guys. I can't read. Like, what in the world? Oh, this guy is just, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Oh, I know. And yes, people in the chat, Panda Upgrade, Sir Darren letting us know that, yes, he's dyslexic. He came out with, I'm just dyslexic, guys. Don't make fun of my dyslexia. Mm-hmm. You know, if Gavin Newsom wasn't so corrupt, he'd be an all right comedian. He's like a mid-curve comedian, you know? He might be like, might have somewhat of a career as a comedian, but man, his stuff is terrible. And I there's a part of me that wants him to become president of the United States just so the rest of the country can suffer the way Californians have suffered. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he'll, if it does, then, we might really be at that point. I mean, I don't know. I go back and forth on things. I thought the presidency of Joe Biden would cause enough of an uproar to, push people to civil war levels. We're already in like a cold civil war in this country. We're already balkanizing. We're dividing state by state, issue by issue. But it'll be a lot worse if Gavin Newsom becomes president. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I mean, it's not any better with the Republican side. What do we got? We got Vance possibly running. I think the Marco Rubio or someone like that. They might be priming him. I mean, it's all the same, folks. It's all the same. It's all the same corruption over and over again. And what are we supposed to do about it? I know people always say that. What are we supposed to do? How do we do? And that's the conversation I think more people are having. But unless we can all agree and move together, we can't do much in terms of overturning the system. And I would argue that just overturning the system is not beneficial ultimately anyway. Here's what would happen, okay? And this is like the Animal Farm story, which, by the way, I forget, some Christian company, I forget which one it was. They're redoing the Animal Farm story. We covered it a few weeks ago. The villain is a technocrat, and the villain looks exactly like Mae Musk, Elon Musk's mother. So they made it into like a technocrat type of story, but really it was against communism, or maybe more specifically socialism, when George Orwell wrote that book. And the idea was the pigs gather together, they're looking at the humans, and they're like, hey, the humans go into the house and they have this luxurious life, and we're out here slaving away these, the farm animals. So let's come together. So the pigs rally all the animals, right? Yeah, let's take over the humans. And they come together, they take over the humans, they kick out the humans. But who gets to live in the house afterwards? The pigs. All the other animals that help, they get left out of the house. And that's exactly what would happen if we truly came together and overthrew the current system. It would collapse everything, which I think they're trying to collapse anyway and reset everything. But the very few who were at the front of the line, or maybe in charge of things, they would get all the benefits, and everybody else would be stuck with a very similar situation. So, it is a little bit, this is partly why I lean into the bigger picture, the transcendent, the divine aspect of this, God's judgment. We want God's judgment, and truly, unfortunately, it's going to be wrath. We want God's wrath, not our own, because our own, it's only going to feed our own pride, and it's just going to perpetuate it. It's a pendulum that swings back and forth, right? When things that are meant to truly restore, it's supernatural. It comes from something beyond our understanding and beyond our grasp. Now, we can reflect justice and do our best to carry out what we can carry out. We may not be able to take down Epstein or something like that, but hey, we can maybe minister to the homeless person on the street, give them a little food, tell them about Jesus. We can do things like that where it's little differences. And I think people get lost in the sauce with that. They'd rather, sit there and try to expose Epstein and do that for hours and hours and hours a day. And some people are making a good living off of it, than doing something a little bit more tangible and helping out the people, the needy, the poor, and those who have been marginalized because of the system, right? And so we're not going to ever necessarily, be able to overcome that stuff without the help of God. And even small victories that we can have in this world, we can attribute to God and not necessarily ourselves. Because ultimately, every single time a politician, tries to appeal to the religious folks for a vote, they disappoint. The leader disappoints. Okay, so it's just a pattern. It happens over and over again, and it's going to continue. Now, moving on. It's here's how me and Basil know that God has his hand over this podcast, is because we started talking about sewer surveillance in 2020. I think June 2020, we reported on the story about COVID toilets. This is like 2 or 3 months after the lockdown, and there was a couple stories about toilets for COVID, and we immediately jumped on this thing like, hey, what if they track our waste? That's gonna be a type of violation of privacy that no one's talking about. Okay, poo surveillance, pee surveillance, right? And we just had that story about Nantucket. They found, triple the amount of cocaine in the water there in the sewage. So, of course, narratives can be crafted from sewer samples.
We'll control them with toileting.
Yes. What other podcast has a toilet jingle? I don't know. You tell me. You tell me. Who has a sewer surveillance jingle? So this is the story coming from DailyMail.co.uk. Miserable sailors moan about backed up toilets aboard U.S. warship as deployment is extended amid mounting Iran tensions.
Toilets! Toilets! Toilets!
Says here, U.S. soldiers whose deployment on a U.S. warship has been extended amid mounting tensions with Iran have complained their grueling schedule is being made worse by clogged toilets on board. Some soldiers holed up on the USS General R. Ford say they are even contemplating leaving the military as they struggle to cope with the impact of missing loved ones for such a long time. Oh, man. I mean, come on. It's the real simple things in life, like having a toilet, that really, brings perspective to the soldier. They want to go home. They want to pee and poop on their home toilet, and they want to be with their families. The sailors were supposed to dock in Virginia in early February, but instead they are headed to the Middle East to support the U.S. and, the ones that we're not supposed to talk about, as hostilities with Iran continue to flare. The U.S.'s largest warship has been at sea since June 2025. It was originally deployed to the Mediterranean before being rerouted in October to the Caribbean to help with the Venezuelan strike, where the U.S. captured President Nicolas Maduro. So I think part of this is a humiliation ritual for the United States. We're in this tension with Iran. Things are ramping up. And look at these silly Americans. They can't even get their toileting right on their large military ships. So, yeah, it's not a great story if you're an American. This is not making Americans look good. Jamie Prosser's son is currently stationed on Ford. She said that the father of two has missed big family moments, including his great-grandfather's funeral and his sister's divorce. Oh, man. I guess you want to be there for your sister if she's getting a divorce, but it's just, it's funny to round up big family moments like great grandpa's funeral and sister's divorce. I mean, okay, all right. Others have to cancel trips, recuse themselves from weddings and more. So, okay, look, the military, we salute the military. I appreciate military people because they are sacrificing for the betterment of the country. And but I feel bad because this is the type of thing that is not meant to glorify the United States military, but actually to embarrass them. I mean, a story like this does not get the kind of press that it's gotten if it's if it's just a random story. And I wonder how many toilets on these types of ships struggle or have issues. It might be like a pretty common thing on some of these older, large scale military operation ships. And, this story just happens to come at a time when a whole bunch of the military are moving into the Middle East. The tensions with Iran are ramping up. And I'm sure they're still negotiating, and I'm sure they're still trying to make something work without bombs being dropped. But that is sort of that is a potential end game in near-term conversations. If they do drop some stuff on Iran, there is some talk that it could trigger and ignite the sleeper cells here in America to start bombing public locations and create all kinds of chaos and false flags here on U.S. soil, which would effectively create another lockdown in this country. We know that during COVID, the social engineers were able to gather a lot of data about how we react to news stories, to certain individuals delivering information, whatever it might be. And we know they're going to use that again. And we know, and this is sort of that PSYOP part of it, we know that a virus might not do it again, right? A normal virus, a flu-like virus is not going to, too many people are going to push back. But if the threat is insurgents, like true insurgents from, the jihadist terrorist groups are in this country, are in the United States, boots on the ground, ready to retaliate. That is the type of fear where everybody will go inside, right? And those who have been prepared will be prepared with weaponry or whatever, resources they gather. But yes, there's this whole thing with the Navy ship. It's embarrassing, and there's footage of it too. I mean, I don't want to show it for too long. It's pretty gross, but it's just a flooded bathroom with brown water, moving around everywhere. Pretty gross. How are the United States military supposed to be effective if they can't even get their toilets to work, right? That's the messaging going on. So very interesting. Hopefully they don't get sick. Hopefully, everything's good. They're able to fix it. And maybe somebody who sabotaged this particular ship, maybe they have an infiltrator. And they're like, hey, how can we really get everybody to feel overwhelmed and stressed out and abandon their plans? Oh, I know.
Toilets!
There you go. That's Steve Ballmer, by the way, from the owner of the Clippers, who's also in all kinds of trouble right now, or I guess not trouble. I don't know. Who cares? Oh, they're paying an NBA player under the table. I'm sure it happens all the time. All right, so there's that. We're going to do a few Trump stories here because there's, Trump obviously is our president, but he's doing a lot of stuff and he's covering a lot of ground.
I am innocent. Innocent. They're coming after me. We will launch a new age.
Yeah, don't mess with Trump.
It will kill. It
will kill. According to theguardian.com, Secret Service fatally shoots armed man who breached Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. This happened, I believe, last week. The U.S. Secret Service shot and killed an armed intruder who breached the perimeter of Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's Florida residence and private club in Palm Beach early on Sunday. Oh, I guess it was Sunday. Wow. Man, time really, is today Monday? Oh my goodness, my brain. Time is really warped. I mean, truly, I thought this happened last week and it happened yesterday. Although the U.S. president often spends weekends at the oceanfront resort, he was at the White House in Washington during this incident, as was the First Lady Melania Trump. Of course, hey, he's getting pressured to drop bombs on Iran. He can't be golfing. At a press conference on Sunday morning, Rick Bradshaw, the sheriff of Palm Beach County, said 2 Secret Service agents and one of his deputies went to the north gate of the property at around 1:30 a.m. after a security detail alerted them that a person was within an inner perimeter. There, they confronted the white male carrying a shotgun and a gasoline can, Bradshaw said. Quote, he was ordered to drop those 2 pieces of equipment that he had with him, at which time he put down the gas can and raised the shotgun to a shooting position, the sheriff said. At that point, the deputy and the 2 Secret Service agents fired their weapons and neutralized the threat. He is deceased at the scene. He has been neutralized. Bradshaw said none of the law enforcement personnel were injured and was unable to say if the man's shotgun was loaded. He distributed to reporters a photograph of the shotgun and fuel canister. They released the name here. The Associated Press reported that the man killed had been identified by investigators as 21-year-old Austin Tucker Martin. ATM. 21. I've noticed that a lot of these shooters are so young recently. I mean, I know the shooter thing has been a problem for, a long time. I mean, I was pretty young when Columbine happened. And of course that triggered the, gun problem in America, as people call it. But a lot of these recent shooters have been much younger, in their early 20s. 21-year-old Austin Tucker Martin. They're investigating him. And of course, they're going to find out what the deal was with these kids, these young guys doing stuff like this. A lot of times I'm still convinced, and again, this is opinion. I don't have hard evidence for this, but I am fairly convinced that some of these cases with these young shooters, they are not just being entrapped, so to speak. Like, it's not just like FBI agents pretending to be friends that are giving them weapons and stuff, because we know that happens too. But more so, they might be using some of the technology that's becoming public now to speak to them, through the mind, or give them some kind of religious experience to suggest that, hey, you are chosen. You have this duty, take out the president. He's going to end the world. We got to stop President Trump from ending the world. And you're the only one that can do it. So, go get him, soldier, and then he goes in there and he gets killed. And none is the wiser, right? Nobody knows that he was being manipulated in that way. And I, that whole mind control device thing, I know that it's existed. The Havana syndrome and stuff has been talked about. But over the course of about 15 years of ministry in this type of fringy topic stuff, I've gotten so many emails from people and messages from people that say, I'm being targeted. And at first I was kind of like, all right, you have a headache problem or something, and you think it's something else. But there were so many emails from so many different people over time. I was like, this has to be legit. There's no way this is just random. People getting this type of thing. I'm sure people have their experiences. And now that the technology is proven to exist, that this is the other side of the conversation. We need to have this conversation. Where has it been used? Has it been used on Americans? I would argue it has. But again, I don't have any evidence for it. In fact, I would argue that some of these technologies seed information in dreams, or can. We've discussed dream engineering years ago. There was a couple years ago when news articles came out saying, hey, I forget what company it was, but they want to put advertisements in your dream. Stuff like that. And so when I hear Candace Owens talk about her dreams and how I talked to Charlie in my dream and blah, 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 and all these things, it just makes me wonder, man, like, why is Candace Owens talking about her dream with Charlie? Why is that like news? So that's a thing. And I know it's another layer to this that we're not privy to. Maybe one day some documentation will come out where this type of thing happened, but that's the problem. What we're reacting to with the whole Epstein thing, though, that is a paper trail of sin that exists. But where's the sin that has occurred more egregious sins, perhaps, that don't have paper trails, that don't have any documentation, or the documentation has been burned or terminated, And that's where you got to have faith in God, that God sees all that and he will bring justice in the end. Things will be restored to his intended purpose. And you got to have that faith. It is a faith. There's no guarantees in our carnal life that we will see any kind of justice. So, this type of thing is going to continue to happen. This story about the Secret Service fatally shooting a guy, fairly quiet, not a whole lot of talk about it. I have noticed a different temperament with the general public since the Epstein files came out, that certain stories just don't hit like they used to. Like this story would have been huge 4 years ago. I mean, not even 4 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, 1 year ago. People would have jumped on this and really, internet warriors, internet sleuthing, all the information about this individual, their social medias and all that, to dig up as much as possible. But now, because we have the Epstein stuff, I think everybody is being pulled in that direction. And as I've said multiple times, great time to release millions of Epstein documents when everybody has AI to sort all of it out. I did use one of my AIs to analyze one of the emails. I just wanted to see what it does. I was like, okay, well, let's see what the AI can sort of identify with this particular email. And it did what you'd expect. It kind of summarized everything for me. But then I also thought like, oh, okay, good. Now the AI company knows that I used their platform to try to understand this particular email from Epstein. And I'm sure all that data is being considered for whatever comes next as well. So that's all happening alongside, of course, we can't go on without talking about the aliens.
Aliens.
Here's President Trump. I believe this was during our show last Wednesday. This happened. I may have played the clip. I don't remember. But more happened since. I'll play the clip. This is Trump addressing Obama from the week before, saying that aliens are real. And then he quickly walked it back a couple days later and did the whole thing of like, I think I've seen documents, but I didn't say they were true alien, whatever he said, whatever nonsense he was saying. So this is Trump responding to it.
Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
So aliens are real.
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
Well, if the president can declassify anything that he wants to, so
Well,
if you
maybe I'll
want to
get him
make
out
an
of trouble.
announcement.
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
We know illegal aliens.
Yeah, illegal. Only illegals.
Are aliens real?
Okay, so that cuts to the Obama clip there. But okay, so people were talking about how Trump said that Obama violated national security, basically. That classified information was not supposed to be mentioned the way it was. And so Obama might be in trouble because of it. Well, a day after, or no, that evening, I believe, the same evening, Trump sent out a truth social that admittedly, it got me triggered. It got everybody. I mean, I got so many people messaging me and I was messaging people, some of my colleagues and stuff, talking about this issue. I'm trying to find the exact post here because here we go. There it is. Okay. So this is what Trump truthed right afterwards. Interesting. This particular post has 666 likes. You know what? I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to break it. I'm going to give it a like so that it's not stuck on 666. Thank you. You're welcome. Donald J. Trump, based on the tremendous interests shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America, in all caps. Okay, so Trump dropped the big one, the disclosure post, that he's going to direct the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to start the process of identifying and releasing government. Haven't they identified these things already? If there's isn't there a military branch doing all this? I forget the name of it. Maybe in the chat somebody can drop it for me and let me know. But I believe there is a government sort of group that they formed specifically to identify this information. Of course, releasing it is different. And so I would imagine that this is going to be similar to the Epstein files. They're going to do a big dump, UFO files, and then everybody's going to run it in their AI and look for keywords. And we're going to learn more about what happened to the Tomb of Gilgamesh and why was Hillary Clinton looking for the Tomb of Gilgamesh and why are they, trying to dig around Afghanistan and all. AARO, is that it? Sir Darren, is that the one? Is it the aerial? What does it stand for here? All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. I think that's it. Thank you, Sir Darren. That's the one. All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Yeah, they're the ones that are already identifying the reports. Now, again, publishing it might be a whole separate conversation there. And I'm sure that there are some barriers to doing that. And so in the end, maybe this post by Trump is not saying much. I'm going to, what does he say here? Begin the process of identifying and releasing government files. He's telling the Secretary of War and other departments and agencies to do so. I also think it was interesting that he said alien and extraterrestrial life. Are they separate things? Or are they one thing? Just kind of implies that they're separate, alien and extraterrestrial. And then unidentified aerial phenomena. We know about that, UAP. You know who made that popular was Hillary Clinton. She's the one that came out and really, said, hey, it's not UFOs anymore, it's UAPs. Along with John Podesta, if you guys know who John Podesta is, part of the Pizzagate situation and all that from about 10 years ago. He said that his greatest regret in his time of office was not releasing the UFO documents. That was his greatest regret. Meanwhile, he's, eating pizza and hot dogs in the back room there. So this sparked obviously a weekend for me of looking at the topic of aliens and demons, because I started and I avoided the debate because I saw the debate taking place on X for a little while. This idea that aliens are demons. No, they're not. And an old friend, Tim Alberino, really sort of stirred the pot when he says aliens are extraterrestrials. He came out and said it. Aliens are extraterrestrials. It's in the Bible, so on and so forth. And I saw another group of folks who I like, the Nephilim Death Squad folks. They were pushing back against that. They were saying, no, aliens are demons. And so, Tim Alberino, you're wrong. And there was a debate there. I didn't want to get into the middle of the debate, but I was trying to extend an olive branch to both sides and try to bring the conversation to a more fruitful place. And at first I said, look, if you're going to say angels, because of course we're using angels now instead of aliens. Angels are extraterrestrials is what Tim Alberino said. And at first you go, no, Tim, you're wrong. What are you talking about? But then I realized what Tim was somewhat saying. Give him a little benefit of the doubt. And if you break down the word extraterrestrial etymologically, you have extra or beyond, terrestrial, Earth, beyond Earth. So categorically, if we're just looking at it etymologically, then the phrase aliens are extraterrestrials is true, because in the Bible, prior to the earth being created, we see the B'nai Ha-Elohim, the sons of God, and the morning stars sing and praise God while God was measuring everything and creating the earth. That's in Job 38. So we know that these entities existed or pre-existed humans, and perhaps in a physical form, because they're there watching physical creation get created, although it doesn't have to be. They don't have to be physical. But the point was, they are beyond earth. Whatever shape you think the earth is. Got a hairball in my mouth. Whatever shape you think the earth is, these entities in the Bible are from beyond earth. And so if we're going to stick to a very plain etymological definition of extraterrestrial, then one might be able to say the phrase angels are extraterrestrials and have it be a true statement. Now, the problem comes in with the contemporary presuppositions for the word extraterrestrials. When most people use the word extraterrestrials, they don't mean it etymologically. They don't mean just beyond earth. They mean it in the context of materialism, reductionism, the theory of evolution, and this idea that, hey, these are biological creatures that sprang up somewhere on some other planet, and now they're here or they're traveling here or whatever. There's a whole different cosmology presupposed or assumed when you use the phrase extraterrestrial. So in that context, I can understand the Nephilim Death Squad people saying, Tim Alberino, what are you talking about? Aliens are not extraterrestrials. Now, I'm not going to speak for Tim. I haven't heard all of his arguments for this. I think Tim leans more towards that. Hey, they could be from other planets. God could have made life abundant in the universe. And, he's kind of affirming the paradigm, the modern secular scientific paradigm, that there's this vast universe and it's huge and all these different things, which Obama, by the way, used as an argument to get himself out of that little problem where he said aliens are real. He was like, what I meant was the universe is vast, and the whole thing, that whole argument. I guess we have satellites and things we point at the sky, and then we measure the lasers or the sound waves or the infrared, and we go, hey, that thing is really far away. And then, we assume that it's this huge thing. For me personally, it's like, I don't know. Like, okay, cool. Do we know for sure? No. Have you been out there? Not really. If it's really teeming with life, where are they? You got the Fermi's paradox. Like, if there are aliens everywhere, then where are they? And then, of course, it starts to get into the conversation about the supernatural, the spiritual, the unseen realm, and the fusion, biblically speaking, the traversing between those realms, the unseen and the seen realm, is a big part of this. Because, of course, Genesis 6, in the paradigm there, the sons of God are these rebellious divine beings that were part of the divine council with God. They decided to rebel against God and leave their domain, left their place of habitation. Now, was that space? Was that another dimension? Not clear. But the point is, these angels that sinned, as described in the New Testament, they left their abode and came down to earth and did their thing with human women and caused the Nephilim. Now, the Nephilim are spirits that weren't meant to be. The union between these B'nai Ha-Elohim, these divine sons of God, and the daughters of Adam created a hybrid race. This is where we get all of the mythology, right? The Greek mythology, Hercules, even the Epic of Gilgamesh from the Sumerian culture. This is where all of it originates. And the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim is understood to be the demons that we learn about or hear about throughout the rest of the Old Testament, and especially the New Testament. They're disembodied, meaning they don't have any more bodies because God flooded the earth, and those spirits became roaming spirits. That's why they're roaming around in the oceans or the deserts, and they seek embodiment. They want a body, and so they form together their legion, and they enter this man's body, and then they have a physical reaction, right? They cause physical reactions in that person who is possessed by those demons. And then Jesus casts them out, And those demons go into a pig. And where do the pigs go? Into the water, into the abyss, the water. And so now we're talking, what is a demon? Okay, because if you're saying aliens are demons, and demons are disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, then aliens don't have bodies. They're just spirits. Is that what you're saying? Is that what those people are? I don't know. More likely is the distinction of demons and demonic. Okay, this is where I hope people are able to have, again, a bridge to the conversation. I'm going to post, or I'm going to show, at least for those of you watching, for those of you listening, I suppose I can post these up at the top of the spaces. I forgot I can do that. Let me see if there is a way to do this. It's not clear. It's not telling me. All right. Is the spaces still going? I don't even know if the spaces is still going. Looks like it is. All right, people leaving. That's fine. I know there's another space going on here with the big dogs. But here's what I said in the post. Demons equals unclean spirits or entities. Demonic equals anything characterized by or influenced by those entities. People conflate the two when discussing things like aliens, in my humble opinion. The Watchers in the Bible, sons of God in Genesis 6, are not demons. They're not. They are divine beings who rebelled. They have physicality in some way. Now, could they traverse from the unseen to the seen? Sure, we don't know what that looks like, but when they interact with humanity, they are physical. Demons are disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. But it is accurate that Watchers are demonic. The Watchers mean the rebellious sons of God, the ones that came down in Genesis 6 and all them. You can say that they're demonic adjectively, not ontologically, meaning that the Watchers, the sons of God, the B'nai HaElohim, they could be doing demonic things, but they themselves are not demons. Similar to the man who was delivered, that Jesus delivered the legion out of, that man was oppressed, possessed, right? He was being demonized, demonic entities or demons, like true demons inside of him, which caused him to be demonic, but he himself was not a demon. See, so I think when we start talking about these things, we need to lay the foundation. We need to define our terms, and then we can have a more fruitful discussion, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm off base here. And if you got an opinion about this, let me know in the chat or in an email or something. Or email Basil. Email Basil. Let him know where I'm wrong. Okay, so I bring it up because this whole conversation with Trump and the declassification, really the thing that's going to be important for all of us, especially the church, this is a big point of emphasis that I want to make for believers, is that it's going to be less important, if aliens are real or whatever. Like that part of it is going to be less important, in my opinion. What's going to be more important is the narrative that is crafted around these entities. And I don't think we're going to get to a place where the US government, even if they declassify some things, it's not going to be conclusive. It's going to be used for conversation and culture shaping by maybe the people that are in position now to influence public thought. Your Sean Ryans and, your some other CIA, big name CIA podcasters. They're all out there right now. Tucker Carlson, another one. They can help craft the narrative about what it all means. And it'll be interesting to see what those folks say as more information is released. Are they going to affirm a non-human biologics? Okay, it's affirmed. Number one, where are they? Okay, where can we see one? Number two, we're going to need a lot more corroborative evidence to conclude that it is a real biological entity that is not from here. And even then, how do we know for sure? if we're talking about, oh, we did a DNA test and it doesn't pop up, the DNA doesn't pop up on any of our databases, so it must be from out there. Well, maybe you created synthetic DNA. Maybe you created some kind of hybrid DNA that doesn't exist prior. There's more than one possibility. It's not just aliens out there. And that's where the problem is. That's where maybe some of the deception, the subtle deception might come in, is that these non-human biologics, even if they're affirmed, doesn't mean anything. What's going to have meaning and what will be more important to pay attention to is what people say about who they are and what their message is. Is their message peace on earth if we bow down to the alien? Is it, hey, clean this up about our human civilization and we'll give you some technologies that can help you live forever? Sounds enticing. Or maybe, it's going to undermine the biblical narrative and say, and I always bring this up because I talked about this in Age of Deceit 15 years ago, which is that, hey, look, guys, it's all factual now. The government affirmed it. Jesus was just Sananda, the ascended master, and he's in a spaceship right now. I mean, it says there in the book of Acts that he flew up into the clouds. The spaceship beamed him up. He's up there right now. He's waiting for us to get in line so he can come back and restore everything. He's not the savior of the world in that way. He didn't die for your sins. No, he's just an alien. He showed us the ascension. He showed us so minimizing who Jesus is and replacing it with this other narrative that will get people to talk about Jesus or even believe in a Jesus, just not the biblical Jesus. And to me, that is the Antichrist spirit. To me, that can deceive the elect. Because if you're not firm in your scripture, and if you're not firm in some of these views, it's going to be very easy to adopt the more new age flavored narratives concerning all the world religions. I think people in Islam are just as susceptible to this. It's like, oh, look, guys, Muhammad, he was just it was just an alien. An alien came down and gave Muhammad all the things he needs to know and gave him the blueprint for civilization and all these things. And even Muhammad went to Jerusalem and he got beamed up. He's up there with Jesus. They're both up there in a spaceship waiting. It's very easy for people to make that connection, especially if the U.S. government is saying that there are non-human biologics out there. Now, that's the non-human biologics, alien, fleshly type of conversation. There's a whole separate conversation about UAPs and UFOs if you want to bring it up. And that side of it is more technological in the sense that these are crafts or, highly advanced technology, perhaps, that, we know the U.S. government and not just the government, but just the elite and the breakaway civilization that we're not really discussing anymore. I think it was about 2014. We started talking about a secret space program and the breakaway civilization, how they funded everything and how they're basically rolling out the technology apart from us. I go back to Catherine Austin Fitts and her quote where she said, there are trillions of dollars missing. It just goes away. They're missing. We don't know where it is. But there's a problem because all of a sudden these people are seeing $1 trillion craft up in the sky with nuts and bolts. People can see the nuts and bolts in these crafts. So it's like the American people deserve an explanation. And of course, Trump is trying to play the guy to bring us that explanation. And will he? I don't know. I think it's going to be more of the same. And here's a little clue. Here's a clue as to how this is an operation. This is coming from Newsweek. Newsweek, okay? Newsweek is one of these intelligence outlets we've identified over the years. And they have a headline here. NASA reacts to Donald Trump's UFO announcement. Now, typically, Newsweek is very anti-Trump. NASA has been, anti-Trump in a sense. So let's see what this article says. A spokesperson for NASA has issued a public statement following President Donald Trump's announcement that he will direct his administration to release government files related to aliens and associated phenomenon. So they talk about the truth post there. Why it matters. A 2021 survey by the Pew Research Center found that 65% of Americans believed intelligent life may exist on other planets. Okay, 65%. I believe in the UK it was higher. The UK had a survey years ago, and the conclusion of that survey was that more people believe in extraterrestrial aliens, basically, than they do in God in the UK. I don't know if that's still the case, but I know at the time, maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7, maybe even more years ago, that was the case. What to know? Quote, we can listen to, I mean, this is where I was like, what's going on here? What to know? Quote, we continue to embrace President Trump's open science commitment as an agency. NASA Press Secretary Bethany Stevens posted on social media platform X on Friday in response to Trump's announcement. The NASA Press Secretary is saying we embrace President Trump. What? What is going on here? Quote, we have fostered open science since our inception so that the public can build upon our innovations. Yeah, good. Has NASA done that? No, they have not. And from the since the inception, you mean when Jack Parsons summoned Lamb, the beast in the deserts of New Mexico? Is that the inception point you guys are talking about? Anyway, it says here, we continue to make all NASA data publicly available and welcome public participation using our data. Is all NASA data public? I doubt it. I doubt it. Stevens added, quote, as NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman has said, there are certainly things he's come across in the job that he can't explain, but they relate more to unnecessarily costly programs than they do to extraterrestrial life. Now, again, Basil made this point years ago, and I believe it is an accurate statement. The money is the lifeblood. The money is the lifeblood. So this person is suggesting that the cost of some programs raised an eyebrow for the NASA administrator, looking over the books perhaps and saying, wait a minute, why did we spend $2 billion on this one project here? Huh, that's weird. Not knowing maybe that he was compartmentalized and blocked off from knowing exactly what that program was doing with the $2 billion. So it always goes back to the financial records that, exposes a lot of this stuff. It says here, interest in extraterrestrials grew sharply after former President Barack Obama addressed the topic during an interview with political commentator Brian. Okay, wait a minute. Interest in extraterrestrials grew sharply after the Obama interview? Newsweek. Come on. All right, Newsweek. I'm pretty sure this topic was exploding before Barack Obama came out and affirmed there are quote unquote aliens. So, and then it talks about Obama is walking it back. It talks about Pete Hegseth and how he's pumped about this. Let's see. Representative Nancy Mace, a South Carolina Republican, wrote on X Thursday, quote, tonight, President Trump is directing full disclosure of UAP and UFO files. In October, I wrote to DOD, CIA, NSA, and DNI demanding exactly that. The truth belongs to the American people. Yeah, and I doubt we get the truth, everybody. I doubt it. I doubt it. Now, I would be surprised if certain things were affirmed in the opposite direction. This is not fun for the UFO people or the alien people, but it might affirm some other research done with, for example, Roswell. I believe Dr. Michael Heiser was the one that put this on my radar. Let me double check it. But Dr. Heiser mentioned how they might have been conducting research with particular aircraft technology that, they were doing in the 40s or 30s and 40s. And let's see. Sorry, I was trying to do two things at once and my brain stopped working for a second there. Okay, so let me just address what Dr. Michael Heiser was talking about here. Excuse me. So he basically suggested that none of the Roswell stuff has to be aliens. Okay. And in fact, aliens is a great cover-up for what was really going on, which is likely a little bit more disturbing, using I forget the name of the disease. There's a certain type of disease where people don't develop and they actually kind of look like aliens, like the gray aliens, the way their eyes and their body develops. And Dr. Michael Heiser suggested maybe it was one of those people, poor people, that were thrown, because they're kind of like a waste in society. Hey, let's see what happens to a human body when you put him in this craft and you fly him up in the air. Because it's hard for me to believe that aliens would travel, hundreds of billions of galaxies to the Earth and then, it crashed. I just don't think that's a thing. If they're that technologically advanced, why are they crashing, on American soil? That doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense that maybe there was a cover-up, and maybe that's what comes out with all of this. And actually, that would be very interesting, because think about discrediting the UFO, or at least major pillars of the traditional UFO topic contemporarily. The Roswell crash, Benny and Barney Hill's another one that I think if you dig in, that wasn't aliens. I think it was government pretending to be aliens, in my opinion. I think that so anyway, theories, but there'll probably be some anomalous reporting that does come out, but wouldn't it be interesting if the opposite effect took place with this disclosure and we found out that no, we didn't find aliens in the documents, but we did find that the US government told everybody to talk about aliens with the Roswell crash because they couldn't tell the public that they were doing some crazy experiments and, inhumane experiments would not fly. So the alien conversation is perfect, gets everyone riled up, gets everyone talking. A whole industry can be spun up with it. You get tourism in certain locations. I mean, the whole thing is just perfect propaganda. That should be a thing. We should have a jingle for perfect propaganda or something. Let's see. We do have this propaganda one. Let's see. Where's my propaganda? Huh? Oh, I'm spelling propaganda wrong. Spelling would be good. Let's see. Here it is.
State-sponsored propaganda machinery.
Yeah, there you go. State-sponsored. The state telling everybody, hey, you know what it would be? It wouldn't be the official government saying it. It would be the official governments and people in black suits and stuff going to the newspapers and saying like, hey, I heard it was aliens. I think there's like a Simpsons scene where Bart Simpson causes trouble. He goes into like I forget what it was. It was like some older folks playing some, I don't know, checkers or something. And he makes these voices and starts causing everybody to fight. He'll be like, hey, I heard you were looking at my wife. And then the other guy over here like, hey, what are you doing staring at my wife? And they all get up and then, all the old guys are mad and yelling at each other and beating each other up. I kind of feel like that's what the U.S. government does when they don't want the attention on them. They will get other people to fight. In fact, I think that's a very good tactic for, certain groups of people or an elite group to use often. Get everybody else fighting each other while the real perpetrators sit quietly and rake in the benefits. So that's the UFO thing here with Trump. Obviously, the conversation is always, or has always been, hey, there's a great deception being planned. And everybody is up to speed on Project Bluebeam. Everyone's saying this, everyone's saying that. And as I talk through this, I'm really starting to think that some of the big UFO stories are going to get debunked with the release. And you heard it here first. And I will stand on my soapbox and say, I called it, if that is the case. And you guys will all know that I said it first. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody else that has said that too. So let's continue on here from aliens to tariffs, the boring stuff. Just real quick, last week we had the SCOTUS result for the tariffs.
Fall in line or this coat is neat. Peace, brother. Now, everybody know I am the judge.
Hear ye! Hear ye!
Fully operational, huh? Well, I'll be the judge of that.
So we have CNBC here with the report. U.S. importers still paying Trump's illegal tariffs even after Supreme Court ruling. What are they doing? Got the bullet points here. Despite Friday's Supreme Court ruling that President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs are illegal, U.S. importers are still paying duties on goods entering the country. U.S. Customs has not yet updated its cargo system management service to remove the tariffs imposed by Trump under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. An estimated 211,000 containers of goods valued at $8.2 billion that arrived in U.S. ports between Friday and Sunday, according to Vision, will still be subject to IEEPA tariffs. Now, without going too deep down the rabbit hole here, as far as I understand, I'm not an expert with the Supreme Court. This is kind of out of my wheelhouse. This is the type of story I ought to get Basil to kind of report on a little bit more. But it's, to my understanding, that this ruling was for specifically reciprocal tariffs, and other forms of tariffs are still okay or haven't been tried in the Supreme Court or at the Supreme Court level. So while, yes, this particular type of tariff is deemed illegal, it may not be. It's too technical for me. Like I don't know all the ins and outs, but it appears to me that maybe it's not the full story. It's because most people are seeing it as, oh, the SCOTUS called it illegal. All tariffs are illegal, but that's not the case. It's this particular one, and that's normally how it works, right? You got one thing going on, and then the narrative gets taken to another level, but the reality is somewhere not so far into the realms of speculation in that regard. So there you go. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I don't know much about it other than that the Supreme Court said it was illegal. Trump said no, it's not. Oh, you know what? I forgot about this. I have to call an audible here. And there's a thing going around where a caller for a show, he said his name was John Barron. And let me know if you recognize this voice. It was on C-SPAN. So you know how C-SPAN does callers. Somebody called into C-SPAN talking about the Trump tariffs, and this is what they said.
Well, this is John Barron, and this is the worst decision you ever have in your life, practically. Jack's going to agree with me, right? But this is a terrible decision. And you have Hakeem Jeffries, he's a dope, and you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy. And you have the woman earlier, I assume she's a woman, she's a Democrat, but she said she's disgraced. She's devastated.
All right,
by
John.
this.
We'll go to Chester, who's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Democratic caller.
They cut him off, but everyone is speculating that was President Donald Trump calling in as John Barron and making a fuss about the Supreme Court decision. And apparently, this is not the first time this has happened. Allegedly, Trump has done this before, and or maybe somebody is doing the Trump voice and calling in. There's several Trump impersonators that are very good. So maybe that's what was going on here. But overall, I think it's hilarious. They didn't know what to do. They're like, oh, okay, we'll move on. I'm sure somebody in the back room was like, that's Trump. That's Donald Trump, freaking out. Cut him off. So anyway, I thought that was a funny little thing that happened in light of this whole tariff situation. And if I'm not mistaken, Trump came out and said, I'm a ruler, I'll do whatever I want or something. Which, I know people get triggered with stuff like that because it makes it sound like I'm a Democrat, like I support Democrats. And the nuance is just lost on people. And I say that to bring us into this next Trump thing.
Zionist.
Here's Donald Trump on C-SPAN with Benjamin Netanyahu. Just last week, there was a little exchange of items.
This was a special token of affection given by myself and the First Lady to Prime Minister and the First Lady of Israel. And it's a key. We call it a key to the White House, and it's a key to our country and to our hearts. And you've been an amazing leader for a long period of time. And this is, in many respects, the big day, because this is something that's very special. And we just left UAE and Bahrain. We're going to meet outside in a ceremony. And it's just a very important event, and it's an honor to have you with us, baby. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I have said, and this is true, that you have the key to the hearts of the people of Israel because of all the great things you've done for the Jewish state and the Jewish people. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, received the key to the White House. Now, if you have paid attention to what the Epstein files have really unleashed, which is confirmation of Epstein's Mossad connection and also his sort of Jewish supremacy, let's just call it for what it is. You know, everybody's talking about the rest of the Goyim and all this kind of stuff. Well, in that context, the optics of handing the keys of the White House to the Prime Minister of Israel is maybe the most egregious. I think they're trying to get Americans paying attention to be extra angry. Because, first of all, it seems the United States is occupied by a foreign nation, multiple foreign nations, but one of the more stronger foreign nations that has a grip on this country seems to be Israel. I was born in a time when you could not speak ill of the Jewish people because they suffered the Holocaust. They were victims, and we shall not speak negative of them. And that was the world that we grew up in, or at least I grew up in. And now things have flipped where more and more people are starting to recognize maybe there's a little bit of authoritarianism, a little breach of ethics when it comes to the activities of the modern nation state Israel and the government, specifically, you know, the political Zionists. And this is, again, another conversation that is nuanced because I'm not talking about all Jews. We're not talking about Jews in America per se. We are talking about the elite here, a very select few who happen to be ethnically claimed Jewish, although that, again, is also up to debate. The internet is exploding about the Khazar myth over again, and saying that, hey, Benjamin Netanyahu is from Spain and Poland. His bloodline is Spain and Poland. He doesn't even have Irish blood. How is he the prime minister? All these things. These are all old conversations, but they're being recycled. They're being brought back up for general public consumption now. I mean, 10 years ago, I think it would have been hard to have this discussion. Much easier when, you know, there's proof in the Epstein files and stuff. So that conversation is taking place, and it's becoming apparent that the United States, or at least the president, is not independent. Okay, they're under the directive of someone else. And there have been plenty of people like Mike Huckabee who have come out and here's the thing, you know, I understand the different viewpoints of people, especially when, you know, they get mingled into that level of elite, and not just mingled in like, hey, I'm rubbing shoulders with them. No, like, hey, my grandkids are now related to Jewish people because the marriage and stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about, where it's not just this political or geopolitical thing. It becomes, hey, my family is being intertwined into this whole thing. And it becomes, it supercharges the geopolitics, I suppose. And in both directions, either pro-Israel or anti-Israel. And again, it's very easy to pin it on one people group We have always been very critical of a lot of groups, including political Zionists. It's what got me canceled off the Bible prophecy circuit in America, is asking questions about political Zionism, because I questioned why we're sending money and weapons to Israel back in 2015. That was the end of Gons getting any kind of attention on big Bible prophecy shows out there, which was fine with me. I'm okay with that. I'd rather seek the truth than, comply so I can make a buck. But here I am, I can't afford groceries. But it's okay. These are decisions that you have to make, So, in my opinion, the modern nation state Israel, or at least the leadership there, the elite class, the Mossad, whatever you want to call it, they have a back door to the White House already. Okay. So let's just make it official. Let's give them the key to the front door. Okay. And that's what happened here. It's just kind of crazy, man. It's crazy. And of course, Israel is part of the Board of Peace that Trump put together. But of course, Israel came out and said, we will not pay a single penny to the Board of Peace, whereas other nations have to be a part of, they got to pay to play kind of thing. But the Jerusalem Post published an opinion piece. Who is this written by? Louis Rene Barris. And they published an article titled, Trump's Board of Peace Won't Stop Jihadist Terror Against Israel. Opinion. And there's a few pieces in here that I thought is worth noting here. It says, in the final analysis, Donald J. Trump's Board of Peace will not benefit Israel. Among other things, this is because the American president's cobbled together peace plan is oriented only to superficial remediation. In essence, Trump's board, quote unquote, deals with symptoms of the terrorism, quote unquote, disease, but ignores the critical root causes. Okay, what's the root cause, Jerusalem Post, of this issue? Terrorism is never comparable to a real estate problem. It is not made solvable by alleged personal relationships or money-centered deals. Though not understood by Trump, jihad terror groups have loftier goals than transforming devastated habitats into luxury beach resorts. Wait a minute, I thought Israel was trying to do that with Gaza. Aren't they trying to transform a devastated habitat like Gaza into a luxury beach resort? Mar-a-Lago? Okay, whatever. Okay. These insurgent adversaries, both Sunni and Shiite, focus more determinedly on transcendent goals than tactical advantages. To the main point, the ultimate goal of jihadi groups is neither territorial nor financial, but, quote, power over death. Excuse me? They are saying here that the real issue, Trump, okay, is not real estate. It's not territorial. It's not financial. It's a spiritual battle. Because the jihadists, do you know what they want to do? They want power over death. Oh, wait a minute. Isn't that what Jared Kushner wants too?
My generation is, hopefully with the advances in science, the first generation to live forever, or the last generation that's going to die.
You guys are looking for the same thing. The transhumanists are looking for the same thing. The occultists, they want the same. They want power over death. That is the goal. There are many pertinent clarifications. Jihadi orientations to terror violence are continuously configuring and reconfiguring. Nonetheless, all jihadi terror organizations have much the same overarching objective. Though prosperous prima facie, this objective is personal immortality, acquired via the violent sacrifice of unbelievers. Okay, so maybe that's where it's a little different in the PR. Okay, the PR is, look, we want to live forever, okay? Jihadis also want to live forever, but they want to do it by sacrificing, being violent, and, just sacrificing the non-believers, right? Okay. Isn't that kind of what the Zionists are doing too? There's violent sacrifices going on. The unbelievers are being marginalized. It's very interesting that they're projecting their own sort of thesis onto radical Islam, which we know from the Epstein files also that some of the groups in the Middle East that we call terrorists were the creation of Israel, or at least assisted by Israel. We know the United States has had a hand in creating or assisting in these groups deliberately or on accident or as a side effect of some kind. Nevertheless, when it comes to an opinion piece on the Jerusalem Post, hey, it's us versus them. In every geographic domain of faith-based mystifications, there are various explosions of anti-reason. You can say that again. Still facing seductive jihadi ideologies that promise eternality to the faithful, Israel needs to remain wary of projecting only ordinary political and economic preference onto its jihadi foes. This is not meant to suggest any uniform Islamist irrationality, but only to underscore that loudly proclaimed secular preferences, Palestinian self-determination, are generally just secondary goals. For the most part, projections of rationality on enemy decision-making processes make good sense, but there are enough significant exceptions here to temper any hope-based generalizations. To wit, if Israel's national leaders were to apprise current jihadi terrorist organizations, Sunni and Shiite, from a refined analytic standpoint, one that would acknowledge the impact of power over death, the nexus between martyrdom operations and life everlasting could be acknowledged. Okay. So what they're saying is, so if Israel talks to the jihadists and they talk about this in the context of, hey, you want power over death, we want power over death, let's kind of work things out, okay? We can get along here. You know, interesting. Israel and the jihadists, being Islam, having a conversation, reframing the tensions on eternal life and life everlasting. Guess who's not part of that conversation? I wonder why. I wonder why the one out of the three monotheistic religions where the claim of the religion is that God had a son in human form. He lived here, died for our sins, and rose again, defeated death. Oh, interesting. Though Israel's bombardments of Gaza produced numerous Palestinian casualties, legal responsibilities for these harms lay with the Jewish state's perfidious foes. Okay, I guess I'll just buy in. Is it going to give me a check? Am I going to get a check in the mail for this? Okay, great. All right, now that I know I'm going to get the check, it makes sense now. The reason why Israel is attacking Gaza and killing a bunch of innocent people is not because Israel's bad. It's the jihadists. It's because of the jihad. Looking for my check. While Israel inflicted Palestinian casualties were inadvertent and unintentional, okay, I don't know about that. Israel suffered civilian deaths and injuries were the result of intentionally indiscriminate jihad terror. Intentional indiscriminate jihadi terror, as opposed to not indiscriminate. So what's the opposite of that? And not intentional terror by Israel. Is that what they're admitting? In legal terms, only the Palestinian side displayed mens rea, or criminal intent. Okay, so obviously this is going to be bent towards the Zionists here. But the conclusion, quote, Board of Peace failure to understand vital linkages between jihadi terror violence and adversarial promises of immortality could strengthen Tehran's war-making capabilities. Moreover, even while remaining non-nuclear, the Islamic Republic could act militarily against Israel as a jihadi terrorist writ large. In that Trump ignored scenario, simultaneous state and sub-state jihadi attacks against Israel could be force multiplying and unprecedented. And yes, that would extend to the United States if that were to take place. But very interesting to publish this opinion piece and basically push back against the Board of Peace, Trump's Board of Peace, and say, look, if you really want to talk to the jihadists, we have to approach them with what their goals are, which is power over death. So now the jihadis are trying to live forever. The Israelis, or not the Israelis, but the Mossad, top elite, Epstein class, they're trying to live forever. Jared Kushner, live forever. Brian Johnson feeding off of his son's blood, trying to live forever. What is up with these people trying to live forever? It's like we've run out of things to do. They're wealthy, they're powerful, they've got nothing else to do. It's like, hey, how about help out the poor and needy? Yeah, let's figure out how to live forever, everybody. It's straight out of every movie, TV show, story over time. It's like the villain is always trying to figure out a way to live forever or control the world. It's like one or the other. It's like, man, there's just nothing new under the sun. It's the same thing every single time. And to put a bow on top of this whole thing, Newsmax, which is sort of framed as the conservative news, the cable news channel, was dropping theology for all of us.
You go to any church or government building, the cornerstone is most often visible. It's not usually buried in some dark subterranean corner of the foundation, never to be seen. It is the stone from which the building springs upward. There can be no doubt, however, that the building that became Western political thought and therefore the free world was built on a foundation of Judaism. Without millennia of Jewish faith and struggle, there is no Christianity.
Okay, before we continue here, he's got a graphic on the screen. It says Western civilization, and it's a triangle. On the base of the triangle is the Star of Renfam, the hexagram, or not the hexagram, the hexagram, the six-pointed star, and it says Judaism. That's the foundation layer. Next up is Christ. Then above that is Christianity. At the very top of the pyramid is USA. So that's the graphic that he's talking about as he explains how Western civilization would not exist without Judaism?
The foundation is an often unseen and much smaller component of the building structure, but it is nonetheless completely indispensable. After thousands of years of war and diaspora, Israel represents the enduring presence of Jews in the Holy Land and the protection of that biblical history. Communists and Islamists understand the critical nature of Jews and Judaism to human society. It's fundamental. That's why they attack Judaism, not just Israel, and they want to see it erased from the Middle East. Israel is therefore not just a political jurisdiction. It is a representation of Jewish political, economic, and spiritual power that is related to Christianity and related to Western society and the free world. The jihadists and the Marxists both know that a building unsupported by its foundation will crumble. If Judaism is broken through the erasure of Jews from the Middle East, which is the goal of the Palestinians and the radical Islamists, then Christianity will also become more vulnerable. Spreading generically anti-Israel messaging is anti-Semitic because weakening Israel's right to existence will lead to not only the killing of more Jews, but the erosion of Judeo-Christian principles upon which the Western world is based.
I would say that take is not based, a very not based take by this guy on Newsmax. I don't boast or say this for boasting purposes, but I did say that they're going to use the Judeo-Christian narrative, like the the splitting of Judeo and Christian is part of the big op. And my goodness, has that been the case when it comes to all this today? Now, one of the big crucial mistakes here that this guy makes in presenting this is a sweeping generalization when he says Judaism. Because we know that modern Judaism is not the same as Old Testament religious worldview. Of course, they're, successive in a sense. But rabbinic Judaism formed after 70 AD, after the temple was destroyed. And the authority shifted from the priests to the rabbis. A lot of oral traditions were formalized with writings. And the Mishnah, specifically in 8200, started the formation of modern Judaism. And then, of course, between 400 and 600 AD, that's when the Talmud really became the foundation of modern Judaism. So modern Judaism is not the same as biblical Old Testament. You can call it Judaism if you want. It's just Old Testament worldview. And it's to the point now where there are communities of Jewish people who are pushing back against political Zionism. And they're saying, look, we're Torah-based Jews, and we reject political Zionism. So, I think everybody's a little guilty here. You got the what is being labeled the woke right? This new class, the Nick Fuentes types were coming in and saying, hey, pro-Nazi, Hitler was right. And, all Jews need to be in jail, or, get rid of whatever their messaging is. You can call it anti-Semitic or whatever, but it's really the people that are saying all that stuff. They're not like hating Jewish people as a whole. Okay. There may be some people that are not, thrilled with Jewish people, but in general, they're more talking about the elite, our government, and foreign occupation in our country. Like, that's what they're mad about. If I can summarize it really, really broadly, it's not about individuals hating other individual Jews. But Newsmax and the mainstream media, they are going to bring that IQ way down and be like, oh, this is all anti-Semitic. It's going to create more violence against Jews and all this kind of stuff. Well, no, not if Torah-based Jews are out there saying, hey, hello, we are technically citizens of Israel or modern Israel. We are Torah Jews, and we reject the political Zionism that's at hand here. We don't agree with it, and we want it out. You got to find the balance there when it comes to some of this stuff, because it is easy to get carried away into one narrative. So yes, you can study the history of Judaism, and that it's clearly a little different than what the Old Testament was presenting as the worldview for the ancient Near East, the Israelites in the ancient Near East. And of course, Jesus changes all that with fulfilling many of the prophecies. So, I just think this conversation needs to continue to happen, and it needs to be more fruitful. It is too easy right now to just politically point people and call them heretics or whatever. I'm seeing somebody like, and I'll just name them because it's, whatever. It's out in public anyway. It's out there. There is a lady. Let's see. Her name is Melissa Doherty, and she's a fellow Christian, and her work on New Thought, which is like a core New Age movement, like an older New Age movement. Her work on that is really, really good. Like, she did a great job exposing the New Thought movement and how it's creeping into the church. So I really support that kind of work, because a lot of what I talked about with Age of Deceit had similar themes of New Age and people channeling entities and stuff like that. But Melissa's gotten pretty political, and she's taking a particular side in the political debate. And for example, she said this: the woke right is a Jew-hating conspiratorial mind virus that is devouring young men. Okay, so all right. Okay, sure. I know young men right now are listening to the Nick Fuenteses. I'm not saying that is healthy. And I can see what she's saying, that a very similar, the similar ways in which the left basically took a generation and got them all confused about all kinds of things like gender and, whatever. A similar type of tactic is being deployed with the far right, quote unquote, as the woke right, as she's calling it. And she's basically saying that this whole thing, this Jew-hating conspiratorial mind virus. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, sure, yeah, there may be some people that are behaving or, expressing this at that level. But I really think a majority of the people are just upset that there's a foreign country that is occupying our country. That's it. The president of the United States is handing the key to the White House to a prime minister of another country, who just so happens to have a lot of influence in America. And I'm not even saying that, they have it fully under lock, which I don't know, some people might argue that. Certainly they have an outnumbered ratio of folks who are in high positions of influence and power monetarily and politically. So those are just facts. The Epstein files show that there is a air of pride and not a good pride, like a supremacy going on with that stuff. Now Melissa mentions some stuff that she, some interviews that she did with some folks. Then she says, the best way to fight bad ideas is with good ideas. I'm glad Huckabee mopped the floor with Tucker. And that is, she quote posted Ambassador Mike Huckabee, who's calling out Nazi sympathizer Nick Fuentes and all these different things. Tucker Carlson, blah, 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 blah. It is based on this interview that Tucker did with Huckabee, and basically Tucker pulled the why doesn't Bieber do a DNA test? Why did you do a DNA test? Tell us how Jewish he is and all this stuff. And again, that's another conversation to have, and I've gone down that rabbit trail, and we know that modern citizens of Israel have less genetic markers of the Levant in that region than the Palestinians do, because the Palestinians have been there the whole time. And then, a good majority of the Jewish people after 70 AD went into diaspora. They didn't have a home country. They, whatever. They were the wandering group that it is fairly miraculous that they did not get completely wiped out. I would argue maybe there is some allowance of what appears to be supernatural with the reformation of the nation. It is quite remarkable in a sense, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that Bible prophecy was fulfilled to the T. Maybe a few words in some of the passages can be referenced as an archetypalism. Come off the whole idea of Bible prophecy was fulfilled in 1940. Mine are really on that bandwagon. I can understand that. And, it's not a deal breaker for me if a fellow believer is pre-trib or free, but, the fellowship in other areas of life are that conversation. So I wouldn't ever break fellowship, love a debate or conversation about it with, friends, family, whoever it might be. But man, Mike Huckabee can't stop talking about Nick Fuentes. Like all these guys, all these pro-Zionist guys, these do is bring up Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. They just cannot help themselves. Posts, and I don't know. It's just, it's taking the bait. It really is, to me. It's like taking the low-hanging fruit bait. And because we know, at least on this show, it's not right or left. It's a big op. The whole thing is an op. And to take sides with it is just, man, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You're setting yourself up to be deceived in a sense. So, I'm just praying for Melissa over there and trying to get her to step away from some of that bandwagon stuff when it comes to this particular issue. But, to each their own. And just to put a cherry on top, we talked about the Israeli bobsled team that, their stuff was stolen. And we were talking a couple episodes ago about how they're trying to create that story, the Cool Runnings story for the Israeli bobsled team. But unfortunately here, this is how it concluded at the Winter Olympics. According to timesofisrael.com, Israel disqualifies its own Olympic bobsleigh team for lying to officials. Oh, man. Can't make this up, man. You can't make this up. In a shock move, Israel's bobsleigh team was barred by Israeli Olympic officials from competing its competition on Sunday in the four-man event at the 2026 Winter Games. So it's not even the Olympic Committee. It's the Israeli Olympic officials. What is going on? In a statement to the Times of Israel early Sunday, the Olympic Committee of Israel said it disqualified the team for competing after one of its athletes lied to Olympic officials in order to allow their teammate, Ward Fariseh, to compete in their stead. Israel competed Saturday in the two runs of the event with the team consisting of A.J. Edelman, Menachem Chen, Yuri Zisman, and Omer Katz. As of Sunday morning, the team was still slated to compete according to the official schedule, but with Edelman, Chen, Farash, and Katz. Had he taken to the ice, Farash would have been Israel's first ever Druze Olympian. Ooh. But he went to the games officially as an alternate and wouldn't be allowed to compete unless another member of the team was unwell. The bobsleigh team asked to include Ward, the substitute, in the competition according to the rules. This is only permitted if one of the athletes is injured or ill, said the Olympic Committee of Israel. Quote, in order to make this possible, one of the team members, encouraged by his teammates, declared that he was unwell. He even went for a medical examination and signed an affidavit so that the Olympic Committee could request approval for a substitution. Afterward, the OCI, the Olympic Committee, said Zisman, quote, admitted to the head of the delegation that he had acted improperly. This forced the Olympic Committee of Israel to withdraw the request and disqualify the move. The OCI said the team's behavior was, quote, improper and, quote, goes against fair and sportsmanlike conduct. In a statement posted on Instagram Sunday, Edelman wrote that since the team was not in a competitive position and had no chance of winning, quote, it was more important to us that our alternate could have the opportunity to compete in the Olympics. However, he wrote, quote, the circumstances under which we made the substitution did not meet the high bar that allows a team to make a lineup change, and we withdrew from the final run, end quote. Edelman said the team is, quote, sorry that this will not end for us in the way we had hoped, but that it is, quote, proud of the history we made representing Israel. So there you go. They lied about getting an alternate to ride the Sunday runs, and so their own Olympic Committee had to disqualify them. I think the story's still being written. You cannot have a good Disney story like Cool Runnings without the failures. The failures are what provide the story for victory. The bedrock for victory is the failure. And I mean, even Cool Runnings, the whole story was about the John Candy character. I forget the name of his character. John Candy played the coach, and his story was that he cheated at the Olympics. He put extra weights in his bobsled, and his gold medal was taken away. That was his story. And that's why he was in Jamaica drinking, or whatever. He was in the bars drinking. He had become a drunk in Jamaica. When the young buck from Jamaica found him and asked him to coach the Jamaican bobsled team. And so, there was that failure, but there was also other failures along the way for the team itself. And then the victory, which wasn't winning the gold medal, it was finishing the race. And there's that powerful scene at the end where they wipe out, right? And then they get out of the sled, they pick up the sled and they walk it across the finish line. And it's this very epic moment in the film. And I'm sure they're trying to manufacture something like this. But, hey, movies take years to make. It didn't quite end the way they wanted it to here. So maybe they can get it all together. So by the time we get to the Winter Olympics in 2030, it'll be a whole new world. It'll be the new world order. We're deep into the age of Aquarius. And the Israeli bobsleigh team might, I don't know, finish a race officially. Let me do it quickly here. The cartel, and they have like crazy awesome gear, like people are pointing out in some kind of first-person shooter game, they got looking equipment, they got the armor, they got the weapons, they got the communication apparatus, they got the helmets and the mask. And it was reported that the Mexican cartel generates about $40 billion of income, and they got submarines, and they got a whole thing. And so the takeaway here is, the cartel, which, you think about how the cartel was glorified in America. There were shows like, what was the name of the show? Ozark. There was a show called Ozark where the Mexican cartel makes an appearance. Some of the main characters get entangled with some things with the Mexican cartel, and, they got to do some stuff. And the way they present the Mexican cartels in movies is always like, he's out in the outskirts, and, they kind of live like nomads, they take over a territory, but the leader is just, he's in this tent, or she's in this tent in the Ozarks. And they're kind of like low grade, sort of wealthy, but not technological is the way they're presented. But this footage here, I mean, this makes it look like tactical, like just a military. And so what I did, I actually quote posted that. And I found a clip from, I don't know what show or movie this is. There's some movie where the guy is like really upset. And I said, Americans just realizing that the cartel is just a well-funded military with better gear. And I can understand some of the responses there with the better gear part, because I know Americans have some pretty awesome gear. The American military specifically has better gear when it comes to the military industrial complex. But I'm talking about just supposed rogue groups like the cartel. They're supposed to be just rogue, right? Like, where are they getting all this stuff? But they truly do operate as a military. They're organized. They have matching uniforms. They got big vehicles, and it's a military. It's might as well be an official military. And so I think people are waking up to the fact that nothing is as it seems, but it's both good because it's waking people up, but it's also a time of sensitivity. People need to, if you're awake, if you're watching this or listening to this, you're probably more up to speed about how everything works and what's going on in the world. And I think it's our job to hold people's hands, let them know that, look, God's in control. The ultimate justice comes from God. We're not trying to be here to revenge for everything. We just can't. It's impossible. We don't have visuals about everything, and we can't read people's hearts. We can only base it off of what's documented and what's public, which is a small sliver of what's really going on. So we got to remember that. We got to keep that in mind and not get too carried away with all the emotions that they're trying to stoke in us. And, I think it's our job to walk people off the ledge if they're literally, or just, spiritually or metaphorically, if they're ready to, whatever, put things into their own hands. And actually, I want to let me sort of land this with a little bit of history. And, one of the cool things about what I'm doing with charter school is pretty much homeschool with my children. I get to teach them. And, mostly my wife, she does most of it, but every once in a while I step in, I got to do a little science or a little history or something. And so I was doing history with my 8-year-old daughter, and she has, we got to read these chapters. And one of them was on the Crusades. So I was like, oh, okay, it'll be interesting what the third graders are being taught about the Crusades. And it was very good. It was just your basic stuff of what happened, and Islam spreading, almost getting to Constantinople. And so they had to deploy some kind of military. The Vatican The Pope said, hey, if you fight this battle, you will go to heaven and you will have rewards in heaven. And so he convinced some people to step into the military and do that, but not to defend Constantinople. The Pope said, hey, let's get to the jugular. Let's go take over Jerusalem. So that's what they try to do. And in the process, man, I was reading this and I thought, first of all, the humans haven't changed at all. We're all very stupid. Okay. I hate to be crude, but we as a collective, humans are just not smart. Okay. We're just not very intelligent, because the book was also telling us about Peter the Hermit. Now, Peter the Hermit was an individual who saw the problem, and instead of waiting for the military to do something about it, Peter the Hermit said, we're going to take things into our own hands. And so he started preaching across, I think it was Italy, not 100% sure. Constantinople, maybe, different spot. But yeah, he was telling all his people randomly, he was speaking to them saying the same thing the Pope promised them, like, hey, we have to fight, we have to defend the West. And if you do, you're going to go to heaven and you're going to have eternal life. And so he gathered his own army, Peter the Hermit, right? A whole bunch of people gathered to go fight and take over Jerusalem for the West and for the church and all this, right? Well, the problem was, number one, they didn't have any weapons. And immediately they were confused about who they were fighting. So along the way, the People's Crusade, thank you, Rami-chan, they were pillaging Christian towns and villages because they didn't know what they were doing. They pillaged Christians along the way to Jerusalem. And then once they got to Jerusalem, which was under Muslim rule at the time, once they got in, they immediately got captured and they got enslaved. So it's like, what are you guys doing? Not very smart, right? And so, you know, as much as we want to make a difference and we want to step up and do something about it, this is a cosmic war that we are in. We can play our part in the context of what we have been given, whether it's a platform like this or, you know, just a conversation with a fellow church member, maybe over lunch. It's a great way to fellowship, or with family, friends, whatever, and inform them, research, you know, present things. But if you think that you're going to be able to mass some kind of like militant response against the system, hey, maybe you pull it off. But even if you do, till what end? What, you guys are going to take the helm now? What, Nick Fuentes is going to bring a rebellion? We're going to take down the pedo elite Zionists. Congratulations. Who's taking the driver's seat? Nick Fuentes? Do we trust him to take us to whatever? I don't know, prosperity? What do people want? So there's nothing new under the sun. We are all in this cosmic war. We only see a sliver of it, and we can only do what we are called to do. And even that, just doing what you're called to do is going to be hard enough. We're going to have obstacles. We're going to have challenges. It's going to be difficult because it's against the grain of what the world wants us to do or wants people to do to push back against obvious evil. But anytime, even in the Old Testament, anytime people try to take things into their own hands, it did not end well. And in some ways, it made it worse. And I think that's a similar situation here where, okay, great, let's take down the evil, corrupt swamp. Let's drain it. Let's put things into our own hands and go after it. At that point, okay, great. What is it going to solve, really? You know, so anyway, I think I have rambled enough. How long have I been ranting? 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours of ranting. If you're still here, I appreciate you. You are a real one. I have a special clip to end today's episode. It is a clip of Dershowitz, Alan Dershowitz speaking to Piers Morgan. And this has got to be one of the weirdest clips ever. It was clipped on TikTok here. Let me play a few seconds.
Could it be
Of
that
course.
Jeffrey Epstein just had a completely different life that he just did not tell you about? And it may also have included being a spy. I mean, clearly.
Telling me that he worked for the Mossad would have given him a get out of jail free card. I could have gotten him no jail time. If he had told me he worked for the Mossad, for the CIA, it would have been a slam dunk for me to go to whoever I had to go to, even up to the President of the United States, and I would have gotten him a deal with no time at all.
Hang on a second. You mean if he'd said he was working with the Mossad or CIA, then he would get off being a pedophile?
That's right.
Oh, we either laugh or cry, folks. You gotta just laugh or cry. I mean, Pierce Morgan saying, wait a minute. So if Epstein admitted that he was Mossad or CIA, you would have let him off of the pedophilia? And Dershowitz is like, yes, that's right. I'm sorry. If you don't find that funny, I apologize. It is disturbing. It's absolutely disturbing, but it is disturbing to comedic levels of insanity. It's truly insanity. This whole thing with the haves and the have-nots and the divide taking place here in this country, and the rules that apply to us but not to these folks at the top. It's really getting pretty egregious, So you're telling me Epstein all he had to say was he's CIA or Mossad, and he can get out of jail. He maybe never have been quote unquote suicided, and then he would have been off on his way. Meanwhile, those of us who are here just trying to make it, if we don't pay our taxes, we get a lien. We get a levy put on us. All of our paychecks go straight to the government first to pay them back or whatever, all the thing. I mean, it's the double standard is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Eventually it's going to break. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe the Iran situation, it gets really hot, and that causes a lockdown in the United States, and we're kind of in our next quarantine period. That could cause some issues. And maybe that's when, real big civil unrest takes place. So let's see. I just got a thing here from, I believe this is Sir Darren. Did you notice the 511tactical.com logos on their goggles? Really? Is this Ephesians 5:11 on their goggles? Is that right? Well, let me go back to that the footage there. Oh yeah. It's got the 5:11 on there. Interesting. 5:11. Okay, so what you're telling me here is the cartel are the Christians. This is how it's going on here. So the Mexican cartel are the real Christians. They're the modern day Crusades, the first Crusades, who actually pulled it off, barely. Yeah. All right. Good to know. Seeing in the chat here, Radio Shack, Adam Curry kissed the wall. He's not to be trusted. No agenda. Is that true? Did Adam Curry visit Israel and do the wall kissing and all that? I mean, it's interesting because on one hand, I think visiting Israel is something that every believer should do or should want to do. I mean, you're talking about the land where so much of biblical history took place. Of course, I want to see it. Of course, I want to walk the roads that Paul walked and stuff. I think that's really cool. Now, the issue is what kind of compromise you have to make to actually go there. You gotta say something. You gotta bend the knee to Bibi. got to give him a key to the White House. Like, what does it take to actually go there? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with Adam Curry in that regard. I know he's a new believer in recent years, and I pray that he gets to stick with the truth. And just because he went to the wall doesn't mean he's compromised necessarily, but I can understand the optics of that, especially now. When did he go? Did he go like? That's why last Thursday's show wasn't live, so he just went then. Okay, yeah. I mean, I have someone, a colleague or a person at my church that just went to Israel last week, and he's one of our Bible study guys, leads a Bible study, and he told me that he loves serving in Israel because he knows they're not believers there, but he loves the people, not the government. He's agreeing with he's agreed with me about not really trusting the Zionist regime there, but in terms of the people, just your average person, he likes to evangelize to them and really just help them out. And okay, so I'm getting more info about Adam Curry here. DC and tech exposure. Wait, how do you say that? DC sent tech exposure. Adam definitely doesn't dismiss dispensationalism. His pastor has him on the wrong track. Yeah, that's okay. People have to kind of go find their own thing, your own way with eschatology. And I'll tell you what, I've talked about this before, but when I started exploring Bible prophecy and being like, all right, I'm seriously going to study this, I was presented with dispensationalism and pre-trib rapture and, 1948 is a fulfillment of prophecy and all those things. And it kind of made sense. At first, it was like, whoa, you're right. Yeah, 1948, that makes sense. It wasn't until I started to read those chapters, like the whole chapter, read the whole book, where it's like, I don't know if what they're saying is exactly correct. That's why I started asking questions. But of course, you're not allowed to ask questions. If you ask questions, then you're a heretic in the eyes of some of those folks. So, I think we just got to keep the conversation going as we can. Eventually, I would imagine that this type of conversation will not be allowed anymore, and that day might come. If so much of the woke stuff and even the COVID stuff was a result of, the censorship that occurred was a result of some nefarious agendas, then I would imagine that a similar type of thing will play out, whether it's the woke right or not. I would imagine censorship will take place for Christians, especially if Israel and Islam start talking about, they're both trying to defeat death. Those Christians aren't trying to defeat death. They think Jesus defeated death, but we're going to take things into our own hands. And that's a good way to pin the Jews and the Muslims against the Christians. Which, by the way, one of the things I said on one of the posts I made was that the Albert Pike letter, the alleged letter that wrote about the World War III being a three-pronged war with the three monotheistic religions. And, there's been some back and forth on the origin of that. William Carr, I believe, was an author in the 70s, maybe earlier than that. He referenced this alleged letter from Albert Pike. There was another document that it was referenced from. And so, modern day scholars or whatever, they will say that we don't know if that was a real thing. There's not very good sourcing for it, whatever. And my point was, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's real or not. Doesn't matter if the origin is truly from where they say it is or isn't. Clearly, the social engineers are using some of those ideas to roll out the next thing. And pinning religions against one another, the three major monotheistic religions, is a great way to do it. And it would make sense that the Vatican, the power of the Vatican, would step in and try to put their stamp on this shift during this great reset. It would make sense. I think that's where Candace Owens, the Tucker Carlsons, a lot of these CIA guys, I think the Vatican has a lot to do with raising those people up. And then, of course, we have political Zionism, or what you may be called Judaism, or, more specifically, sort of a mystical Judaism, the Kabbalah, that group, obviously doing what they're doing and ruling the world through monetary control, legal control, other means that make it difficult for people without the resources to push back against. Then you have the Muslims, you have Islam, another huge religion worldwide. Most Muslims are not violent. They're not trying to take over everything. I suppose culturally or religiously, you can argue that maybe that's part of their doctrine. And certainly I'm not agreeing with things that are in the Quran. And even then, it's interesting because much like how if Christianity gets labeled, hey, look at the God of the Old Testament, he's just evil, he's killing everybody, blah, 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 blah. Well, you put it into the proper context of the Nephilim and the giants and some of that language about genocide from the Bible, from protecting Israelites, makes a little bit more sense to protect the bloodline of the Messiah type thing. And something similar might be going on with Islam and the Quran. I haven't done my deep dive homework on that, so don't quote me on that. But I think it's moving in the direction where people are either going to double down on all that stuff or step away. And here's the thing. For me, it's like I feel like I don't fit in any of those categories, even though I believe in God, even though I believe Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, and that he died for my sins and your sins. And if you accept him into your heart, you are promised eternal life. You are born again. And all these things, I believe that. I don't share the hierarchical, I don't know, what is it called? Whatever, the hierarchy of the Vatican. Obviously, I don't accept it. I don't accept the Pope as some mediator between me and God. And the doctrine of the Catholic Church, I don't agree with necessarily. So I don't fit in with them. I obviously don't fit in with the Kabbalists, and I'm not Islam. So, where do we put ourselves? And I guess that's why we have passages that talk about we are not of this world. We are the sojourners, and there's going to be a remnant, all these things. It's like a small group that's out there and really not fitting in anywhere because they're going to stick to their convictions. I will stick to my conviction. And I know many of you listening will as well. Okay. Yep. Some sentiment being mentioned in the chat makes sense. Yes, Vatican is run by the Jesuits. Yeah, this is what I mean. It's like the Jesuits versus the Zionists versus the Islamists. And, they've all kind of helped each other over the years and also fight each other. And, it always seems like those are just like the big pillars fighting against each other. But we know from scripture, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, unseen wickedness in cosmic places, depending on your translation. So we know that this battle is not carnal. So the spirits, plural, behind all those institutions may be one and the same. That's all I got to say. So, all right, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you for being here. We're going to thank all of our producers who came in either next episode or next Monday. I think Basil's out this week. He might be here Wednesday. I'm not 100% sure. He's traveling right now, so he's always traveling. But appreciate you being here. This podcast is value for value, which means we don't do advertisements. We don't do affiliate codes. We don't do sponsorships. We don't accept cartel money. We don't accept lobbyists. We don't do any of that stuff, which on one hand keeps us very poor. I'm not going to say poor obviously we live in America. I live in California. We're not like poor, poor. but it keeps us on the rat race, I guess, in the rat race, rather. It keeps us, paycheck to paycheck type of situation, which is okay. I have faith that God will provide, but it is up to you, the listener, if you decide that you want to support us in this endeavor to bring the news and this analysis and this perspective while sharing the gospel in the way that we do. If you support it, you believe in it, you can support us financially, or you can support us with your time and talent, make some art for the show, help build the culture behind the community, or volunteer your time, help us do some things in the back end, which we're trying to be better at. Both Basil and I are not great like team managers. It's not really our strength. So we might include some other people to help us with some of that. We're terrible accountants. We are terrible schedulers. Like we're not good at sort of the logistical things when it comes to running any kind of business, really, to be honest with you. I'm more research and putting together different projects and things like that, and creating content like I've been doing for 15 years. And that's where my strengths are. It's where I feel called to really continue to lean in. Doesn't always feel like a blessing to do so, but I know it is, and I'll keep pressing forward with that. So appreciate all of you for supporting and sticking around. And I think that's it. Oh, you know what? I should mention that there are some meetups coming up. There's a meetup coming up this Saturday, I believe. Yep, this Saturday at North Glen, Colorado, Prost Brewing Company, North Glen, Colorado, February 28th, 3 p.m. RSVP Kona if you'd like to meet some Canarians in Colorado. And then on March 3rd at the Yuko Kitchen, we have a meetup with Andy in downtown Los Angeles. That'll be another good one. There's an RSVP for Andy there on the website, canarycrymeetups.com. Go check it out. Let's see, Canary Cry Supply Drop. We appreciate all the supply droppers. You guys are, it turns out you guys are really the lifeblood of, helping us wake up and realize that we can go another day doing this podcast. And again, things are getting a little tight, but the supply droppers, you guys have been very loyal and we appreciate you. Supply droppers are people coming in $33.33 a month. And we send out a little box of supplies, of things, of cool things every quarter, all Canary Cry branded and everything. It's a fun thing there. So if you're a part of the supply drop, thank you. Appreciate you. There's also Cage Rattler Coffee. It's one of our producers who put together Canary Cry branded coffee. This is not a product that we are selling, but it is something that one of our producers put together. Talk about parallel economy. And when you buy coffee from CageRattlerCoffee.com, a portion of that will go to support the show. So appreciate that.
Cage Rattler Coffee, where value for value never tasted so good.
In fact, I just grinded some of my dark roast the other day, and I'm drinking it right now. Some iced coffee. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. All right. Let's see. Thank you to all of our folks in the roundtable of knights and dames. You're exceptional. Thank you. I'd like to see more of you get into that realm, maybe over time. And let's see, who else do we need to thank? Oh, all the people with their talent, all the people with their time, like the time stampers.
Timestamp, it's hard work. Timestamp.
I believe, let me double check. Jade Bouncerson did last episode. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate you with that and catching up with everything. Thank you, Jade Bouncerson and Morgan E. when she steps in to help out with the timestamps. Those are very important things for us. And I think that's it. Share the show. Share the show with friends, family. If you want to hear an Asian Christian guy ramble for 2.5 hours about world events, send him a copy of this episode. And yeah, maybe it'll scare them away. Or maybe not now. You know, maybe now is the time to get Canary Cry out there because, you know, the topics are out in the culture now. It's no longer crazy to talk about transhumanism or some of these other things that are seemingly rolling out. And we got to pay attention to what comes next. I think that's something that we have been doing, but more explicitly over time, we will be more specific about maybe what kinds of things they are rolling out into the future. All you got to do is walk right up to your friend, family, pet, plant, and shake them.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Stella.
All right, that will do it for today. Oh, you know what today was? It was Diocletian begins Rome's great persecution of Christians back in the year 303. All right. 1455, Johannes Gutenberg prints his first Bible. Wow. And also today was Banana Day, everybody. Banana Day. Go have a banana. Go give your child a banana. Go eat a banana. Do you like your bananas more green or more brown? Or just right? I used to be a brown banana guy, but over time I've become more of a greenish banana guy. I'm okay with the green bananas. So anyway. I like this on Radio Shack from Rumble. If you stop hearing the canary, that means things are about to get hairy. Yep. Very true. Very true. If you stop hearing from us, something terrible has happened to the world. All right. Go have a banana. Have an awesome day. We'll be back on Wednesday on Don't Even Get Me Started on Bidets Day. Oh, that'll be fun. All right. I'll see you guys next time. And until then, think outside the cage.
Reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Bye, gold. Bye!
I cry to the Lord with my voice, with my voice, and to the Lord did I make my supplication. I pour out my complaint before Him. I showed before Him my trouble. My spirit was It is never me. on my right hand and be held. But there was no man that would know me. Refuge failed me. No one cared for my soul. I cried unto thee, oh Lord. I said, Thou art my refuge and my portion. In the land of the living. Tend unto my powerful island, broad river road, deliver me from my persecutors, for they are stronger than I. My soul out of prison, that I may praise thy name. Righteous shall compass me about, for thou shalt deal bountifully with me.
Howdy, partner.
Do you even dare?
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people zoo.
Don't push your buttons. Let in your spaceship. It will be over. Let it already. It will be started. Robot girls, robot boys, all together in space. Robot girls, robot boys, all together in space. Robot girls, robot boys, all together in space. Robot girls, robot boys, all together. It's an
Canary crying news talk, man, what's going on? Gotta turn it on, shows coming on live. VPN on when I'm going online. Anonymity, man, cryptocurrency, we got everything you need. Get it 3 times a week. Just Christ the King, let the Holy Spirit speak. Battle in the cage, gotta set the captive free. Value for value, to me it's not free. Wish I had a longer streak, but this creativity go fulfill the 3 T's. That's time, treasure, talent. Give it right back, put it right back in balance. Not right or left, we not with the distractions. Catastrophes are the classic techniques. All attacks of the enemy getting defeated underneath the feet of Jesus. Just believe us. Media is trying to deceive you. Gotta read between the lines till you see through the disguise. It's a slit reptilian eye sitting on top of the pyramid. Got a myriad of topics. Might be on a watch list. R.I.P. face like the sun, but you cannot stop this. Like the Lord's gonna come stop this beast system and this infinite wisdom. Yeah, when the time is right, yeah, we're gonna take flight like a thief in the night. So I gotta get it right. I gotta repent and sit patient. Waiting for supply drop. Google eyes don't blink, man. I need some eye drops. Google mind deep thinking for the AI thoughts. Yeah, Basil Gons. You know what's going on. Basil Gons. Never Crown News Talk, man, what's going on. Basil Gons. And you know what's going on. Basil. Canary Crown News Talk, man, what's going on.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.